Hello, welcome back to A Slightly Twisted Female. I'm your host, Brittany Rue. Thank you so much for your patience. I'm here, guys. Just know that if I ever happen to be on time, that'll be like the amazing, remarkable thing because it'll probably never happen. So I originally slated this as a live stream because I had about Duchess Lois of Alberta, who is Eva Kurilova's friend that we discussed in the last live stream, and I wanted to go through Phil Illey because I kind of left the last live stream on a cliffhanger, and I wanted to go through some of Phil Illey's work and writings regarding his sexual interest in being pegged by women and how he grooms gender confused women to believe that they're autoandrophiles so that he can engage in sort of like role reversal sex with them. And I wanted to sort of substantiate that with his own writings. But in the meantime, and as I usually do, and actually one of the main reasons why I'm late to my streams is I always spend like a couple hours before the stream doing some research. Right. That's why I don't get on earlier than this, because I get my kids off to school. I do, take care of some things. And then, on days when I stream, I do some research first and I'll, whatever the topic is. And the more that I was looking through this Duchess Lois thing, the more that I realized there's actually a lot there. And it's just like, not to toot my own horn, but I just feel like, being 35 now, having gone through what I've gone through in the world, I realize that, like, just through my experience in life, I've learned to trust my instincts on things. And I keep proving to myself time and time again that my gut reaction is, batting pretty high. I'm like batting 1,000 at this point. And somebody was saying the same thing about Karen Davis, which I think is absolutely true. Karen Davis is somebody who has really good instincts about people, and I know that she can really like fixate on things, but that's because, again, I feel like when you have a high, like someone like Karen Davis, who does have a high like sense of responsibility to her own sense of like moral and intellectual integrity, you find like you kind of just want to like really drive that point home. And so a lot of people were kind of making me feel bad that I was going in on Lois, and I got a bunch of comments implying that I was being racist yesterday, and I want to respond to that. So some people were saying that I sneered when I was calling him Indigenous or First Nations. If you guys didn't notice, I pretty much mocked him the entire 3-hour stream. So anytime I was reading anything in regards to him, I was sneering. Okay, I actually think that him being a First Nations, Indigenous Canadian is probably the only thing that's interesting about him. And that's actually the only thing I'd probably like to learn more about and hear more about. And this whole, it's so tired, the stupid trope of just calling racism. Do you guys even understand what racism actually means? Do you even understand, like, it's like, do we have it that good now that we're honing in on what microaggressions? Like I was saying, my children are all mixed race, right? And I was talking, I remember when I was pregnant with my one child, and like I knew that they were going to be, mixed race in the world, and it was like I just remember thinking, I want to do whatever I can in my power to keep them the fuck away from the concept of like microaggressions. I think it is so toxic to sort of train children early on to be hyper in tuned and just hyper reactive and hyper aware of these perceived slights. It's like the idea of microaggressions is, and I'm not saying that it's a completely invalid thing, but I think the way that people interpret it and utilize it, where it's like any exchange where there's some sort of ambiguous behavior on the other person's part, it trains you to read racism into anything, right? It's like, oh, they didn't say anything racist, but I'll tell you what, they're thinking about it. It's because they hate you. They're looking down on you. They don't like you because of your skin tone. They don't like you because, you're indigenous. That's why. What kind of a toxic message is that to send to a child who's growing and developing in the world? Just like, yeah, people hate you and they don't like the way, the way that your hair is. And so you need to be aware of that, and you're going to be discriminated against, and what like a defeatist attitude. And you got me fucked up if you think that I'm going to let my children lead with this idea that the world is all hating on them at all times, and that people are microaggressing against them. And the fact that we have to like hook on to the concept of microaggressions just means that there's really not enough going on in the broader world, in the world of racism, that we can actually point to. So now we've got to actually manufacture these instances of, it's like really like, it's like a perceived slight, right? It's like somebody with borderline personality disorder, who sees things in very like white and black and no shades of gray. Somebody who has borderline personality disorder is the type to like think the world of somebody one day and think that they're like the greatest person on the earth and they're infallible. And I'm sure there's a lot of us who can know people who are like this, think they're the best, can see they do no wrong. And then they interact, they like, that person has one day where maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe there's things going on that other people don't know, and they kind of snap at you a little bit. Maybe they were a little bit rude, and it's like, it's stuff that really wasn't your fault. It's like their own thing going on, and they're just, whatever. And rather than having somebody with a borderline personality disorder, rather than having the ability to just be like, you know what, that was a dick move on their part, but it doesn't negate that they're overall a good person, and maybe they're having a bad day or whatever the case may be. They can't incorporate the idea that people are dimensional, multifaceted. They'll go from totally pedestalizing the person to thinking they're like the worst, and now I hate them and I want nothing to do with them, and they're just totally messed up. There's like no ability to kind of understand that people are multidimensional. And it's like, I will never, there's no chance in hell that I'm ever going to let that sort of like defeatist mentality, reading racism into literally every exchange, dominate my children's life. I think it's like the soft bigotry of low expectations. It's a soft bigotry to tell children that there is a world that hates them. It's the same thing that they do with these trans kids, right? Where they put these trans kids in these t-shirts that say, I'm the scary trans person that the media warned you about. Like, what kind of a thing? It's like what they were doing with Kai Shapley. The mom is always like, yeah, Kai, this is why we've got to fight. Like, you sit there and you see 6-year-old Kai Shapley, who was like on the cover of Time magazine. This kid who has to comfort or I guess it was the other kid. There's two kids who look alike, but whatever. I don't know if he was on Time. It might have been the other kid. But he's like comforting his adult mom. He's like, it's okay, mommy. And the mom just like, it's just so hard knowing that there's adults in the world that hate you, Kai. They hate kids like you, Kai. They hate trans people, and I don't want you to grow up knowing that there's so many people who hate my beautiful boy. And the child's having to like take on all the emotional labor of like comforting his mom. He's like, it's okay, mommy. I'm scared. And then at one point he's like, I'm scared. Like, bro, what the fuck are you doing to this child? What are you doing? That's why it's like, I remember when I was diagnosed with cancer and I wasn't sure how I wanted to tell my children about it. And I wanted to wait till I had like more information. And I also wanted to wait till like the initial shock wore, I was able to move past my own shock and process it a little bit so that I could like, sit down and be a little bit more emotionally disconnected. And I'd have time to sit with it to tell my children. And unfortunately, my oldest son overheard me on the phone with my doctors. And I remember he was like, he was quiet. And after I got off the phone, and then later I saw him, I was like, hey, bud, like, hey, what's going on? I was like, I didn't even realize that you were over there. And he was like, he was like, are you sick? And I was like, why? What? I was like, what makes you think that? I said, did you hear me on the phone? He's like, yeah, I heard you. Do you have cancer? And I was like, I think so. I think so. And he was like, is it bad? Are you gonna die? I was like, I said, listen, I don't know everything yet, okay? What I want you to know though is I am, I hadn't told you guys yet because I wanted to get more information. And I said, and I don't want you to think I was trying to hide this from you, but I wanted to know everything I needed to know before I talked to you. And I said, I don't have all the answers just yet. What I want you to know is we live close to one of, the nation and really the world's preeminent cancer centers. I said, I've chosen to drive out of my way to go to this really specialized cancer center rather than going to the one locally because I know what a phenomenal resource it is. And I said, and Joelle, I said to my son, I was like, um, I know that cancer is such a scary word and it's such a loaded word, but I also want you to know that it was like 2021. I was like, it's 2021 now. And I said, the advances that have been made in cancer research and treatment have been phenomenal, and I was like, and I know for a fact that like prognoses are wildly better than they were even 20 years ago. So I was like, I don't have all the answers yet, but I want you to know I'm in the best possible hands. And then he had said something like, I'm going to like do whatever I can to help you. And, I'll be there to like pick up slack with the kids. And I was like, I don't want you to feel like this is your responsibility. I said, I'm still your mom. Like at no point is it going to be your job to take care of me. Right. And I said, if I do, of course, want you guys to do your role in the house and keep up with what your responsibilities are and what they've always been, but I don't want you to feel like now you have this extra burdens or that you're going to need to somehow like manage me or manage the house in a way that's like outside of your like whatever. And I said, I have my sister, I said my aunt, whoever, I said I have my sister, I have mom and poppy down the road. I said I have a lot of friends. I said I have a lot of adults in my life. Okay, and we have a lot of adults and a lot of support and a lot of people who can be here for me. And I just want you to know that like it's not on you. But I do appreciate you like, step up and like in your own way, maybe like do a couple extra dishes or whatever. But know that I'm going to be okay and know that it is not your responsibility to solve any of it. Like it's going to get resolved and we're going to work through it and it's not your job. It's your job to just keep like being the best you can at school and being the best you can here and just know that like I'm in good hands, right? Like that's the approach. And like even though I was scared, right? Even though like I was terrified, it was like I wanted the most important thing for me in that conversation was just that he understood that I'm still the adult and I'm still the mom and I'm still taking care of him. I never, like my mom kind of did that to us a lot where she really like, she kind of did a lot of like role reversals and we kind of had to like parent her in certain ways. And I don't want to like down talk my mom. It just, there were some times that her dad had passed away when she was, 16. Both of her parents were in the military. They came from like a very strict family that didn't talk a lot about emotions and stuff. And my grandmother, like God rest her soul and God bless her, like was an amazing woman. She was a nurse in the Navy. She had 6 children. Her husband, who was, it fit and in shape, dropped dead of like a really, I guess like some kind of, I don't know if it was congenital, but like a genetic heart issue that is not because he was overweight or anything. And had to step up and take care of a family of 6 children. And, I think that my mom always said that, like my grandmom was always doing so much to keep everybody afloat that she didn't have time to like sit with them and do the extra parenting things. And I think that like, in some ways my mom had just not fully emotionally matured in certain ways that I think she should have, right? So I know what it felt like to be like dumped on by a parent. But it's like yeah, Miss Misery Gloom says, I always had to parent my parents. You lose your childhood. And I see that a lot with single moms, unfortunately. And like me, again, I was, a single mom. And it's like, I was always afraid of doing that. And that's why I was like, my oldest son he's so awesome in that regards, where like he does want to step up a lot, and sometimes I have to like rein him in a little bit and just be like, you'll have your time in the world, to be in charge, and you'll have your time where your family is going to look to you and you are going to be the like everybody's rock. I said, but you're not there yet, right? Your only job is to be the best that you can be within your own responsibilities as a child, and to take care of yourself and know that I'm taking care of you. So it's like, whatever. I just say all that to say that, like, anyway, what the fuck was I talking about? I don't even know. I like the whole like racism thing and blah, 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 blah. And people claiming that it was racist that I like was reading his story in like a mocking tone. Like, bro, miss me with the bullshit. You know what I mean? I'm not one of these like white liberals who's like so terrified of being labeled as racist. I don't care. I don't fall for that kind of shit. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really not the one to emotionally blackmail with basis claims of racism. I'm not going to bend over backwards trying to like prove that I love black people. I love indigenous people. What are you talking about? I donated to the Indigenous Peoples Fund the other day. Like, I stand against all that, bro. Miss me with the fuck shit, okay? Clearly, I'm making fun of this guy across the board. And like I said, him being indigenous is like the probably most interesting thing about him. Of course, I'm not racist about him being indigenous. Shut up. No, what I don't agree with, and I made a little short where I explained this, is I don't agree with him falling back on identity politics. And it turns out that this is like a thing that he does a lot. And now it's like the more that I've learned about this guy, the more I'm actually starting to have more sympathy and empathy for Eva, who like originally a lot of my ire was towards Eva just because I felt like she's just real annoying. I do think that she's like emotionally stunted, but this guy I think is an abuser. I think that this guy right below me right here, this is him. This Lois guy, I think he's absolutely an abuser. I think that he's using her, and I think that he emotionally abuses her. You know what I mean? I know that that's like a pretty like intense thing to accuse somebody of, but that's not a healthy dynamic. And the way the stuff that he does towards her is actually gross. And it's kind of like, sis, like blink twice if you need help. Like, we got you. Like, we can get you out of this situation. But of course it's a lot of like Stockholm syndrome where she's just abused or defends him to the death. And another thing that I thought was really interesting. Hey, Sasha. Yeah, Abigail Mills says, I think Eva is just not in a mental state where she's not mature enough not to be manipulated and used, kind of. And that's exactly what it is. So it's like, and I like listened to her talk. So I finally like watched more of the Benjamin Boyce thing. And to Anna Slatt's credit, she's right. Like, Eva does come off as like a compassionate person. Like, she cried a little bit on the stream, and and I believe all those things. Like, and I don't, it just because like I'm like firm in my criticism of somebody about a certain thing, it doesn't mean that she's just this like huge piece of shit across the board and everybody should hate her and all this stuff. Like, no, I'm just trying to like drive the point home that I don't think she's fit to be like a leader or a leading voice in this movement. I think that maybe she has good things to offer, but right now she's compromised. Right now, whether she's can get out of that situation and kind of snap out of it, I don't know. But right now, she's in no place to be speaking for us. Or, like, again, she should not be on panels that people are paying to see talking about gender critical issues when she clearly doesn't really know where she stands on stuff. This guy is a lot worse than I thought. Okay, I thought like, yeah, maybe he's just like this annoying little pet. No. He's gross. So let's take a look. Something else that I thought was interesting. Another thing that I wanted to also clarify, two quick things. In terms of ASlightlyTwistedXX, I know that it's like, I feel like we're so kind of algorithmically like wired to the more time we spend online and the way that the algorithm is on social media to drive engagement, it likes to drive polarity, right? Two sides fighting against each other. I'm with this or I'm with this and we need to fight, and it's like all or nothing and stuff like that. And like, I was like frustrated or angry with ASlightlyTwistedXX, and like I do stand by like my criticisms of her or whatever. I don't hate her like at all. She didn't do anything wrong to me, right? Like it's a shame because I'll like kind of like will reflect back on like these like nice moments that we've had together, that were like sincere and genuine. And there are some parts of Sierra that really are sweet. Like she does have this kind of like the r/I am very smart a little bit like and it gets a little bit condescending, but it's like when you can get her out of that mode, and I think a lot of that has to do with a lot of her identity is built around this idea of her being the smartest person in the room, right? And that's kind of how, and if she's not the smartest person in the room, then it's like, I don't think she has the self-esteem to believe that her other qualities will carry her. And that's why she has to kind of like, that's why I think she's very difficult to get her to admit when she's wrong. And she'll kind of go to these great like lengths to justify her position no matter what. And it's like, it's just like a mission impossible to get her to just acquiesce that she was wrong about something. Right. And when you kind of cut through all of that shit, she really is like a sweet and like caring and like lovable person and like a loving person, and I do think that unfortunately, like it's like everything is a double-edged sword, on the one hand, it's like the negative qualities that lead her, I think, to kind of go out of her way to fit in with friend groups that can compromise her. It's also because she's like a care. She wants to be close to people, right? That's not like a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to like want to be loved and to want to be close to people. And it's like we have this like hyper individualistic idea that like you're this like big weak loser if you want to like be close to people. That doesn't bother me. It's like, unfortunately, it's just when people are looking to you for guidance and for a blueprint on this stuff, you can't let that stuff compromise your ability to, make a voice, and whatever. I just want to be clear, I don't hate her, okay? Eva's subsex says do better. Oh, Eva, we are going to do better. We're going to do much better. And we're going to do it today. Because your friend has a whole lot of weirdo shit going on. We're going to talk about it. Anyway, and then one other thing was, Tucson Progressive, who was also, I guess, by another name, Lavender Rose Loves Women, who, it's always been like such a mixed bag. Because I remember like when I first started my channel, she used to like really kind of like go at me and like didn't seem to agree with, my takes. And I used to have to like kind of argue with her a lot. Hold on, Max. Bang. And then, hold on. I gotta let my dog pee. Hold on for a second. Hold on. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm just pausing the stream. Don't freak out. Be right back. Don't leave. 2 seconds. All right, my bad. Okay, so anyway, another thing that people had said that like I was, ignorant to indigenous issues of the forced sterilization, which I am aware of. It's not like, I'm not going to claim that I'm like some expert on the whole forced sterilization thing, but it is worth bringing up, right? And this is kind of what makes these true trans grifters so, I think, problematic, because they do appropriate like pro gender critical talking points that could be valid, but it's like they push it in a way that's very self-serving, right? And I think that we need to let's just take a look at it, because it is worth discussing. And my biggest issue, right, is here, let me pull it up, is that Duchess Lois does not just talk about, okay, I had elective sex reassignment surgery or genital approximation surgery, which is really what it is. And I'm concerned about how the lack of sort of red tape or the lack of a process for accessing these surgeries, and how it's kind of promoted in Canada, maybe promoted amongst like Indigenous people, seems to be running very parallel to what we saw with this horrific instance where Indigenous women were being targeted by a government program in which they were forced sterilized by the government, forced and coerced sterilized by the government to basically end Indigenous birth rates, right? And rather than kind of just like drawing a comparison and like this was a women's issue, predominantly women's issue, I think there was like a couple of men, but it was like mostly women. Hold on for 1 second, let me let it back in. He goes, I know, it feels so bad when I can't let Max in. He calls himself, he always introduces himself as, hi, I'm Lois, and I am a First Nation transsexual, I am a sterilized First Nation transsexual woman. When he says I'm a he's basically, even if you get rid of the transsexual part, he's saying I'm a First Nation, I am a sterilized First Nations woman, right? And that very much gives the impression, like, again, when you hear the word sterilized First Nations woman, it sounds very much like we're talking about women who were affected by this program. Right. And he sort of carries himself as though he falls under that umbrella. My issue is that once again, we have a man who appropriates the experiences of being he appropriates femaleness, the experiences of women. And of course, he's appropriating the lived realities and the historical trauma and pain of Indigenous women who were targeted by these sterilization policies and protocols. He is not one of those women. He is not a woman, a First Nations woman who was forced to be sterilized through one of these programs. Let's take a look at this program. And he's very much passing himself off, linguistically, as though he kind of is, the way that he introduces himself, right? I was sterilized. Sir, just because you went ahead and had your penis inverted because as some sort of, again, homosexual dating strategy in 2014 is not the same as, I think that these sterilization programs started in 1913. So I think it was like from 1913 was the earliest one up until like 1973. Even then, though, 70s, that's so late and it's so horrific. But the 70s were not a time when you had access to the internet, or so it was like, and these women were misled about what was happening, or it was happening like against their knowledge. So to pretend that a procedure that you received, or I'm sorry, in 2010, he said he's had it for 14 years. So I guess in 2010. So to pretend like you getting genital appropriation surgery so that you could mimic being a female as, again, a homosexual dating strategy is not the same as women coming into their doctors for what they thought was routine gynecological care and being sterilized. And I'm sorry, we don't need to appropriate the lived realities of women and support men appropriating those lived realities of females and of women to support our cause. Okay, that's not something that I want to co-sign. I think that's gross. I think it's gross. And I don't think that that's the same as saying like, hey, these are, it's sort of similar to what was happening. Also, First Nations people, I'm not going to say that they're not being intentionally targeted by gender. They may well be, right? And I'd have to look more into that. But Canada as a whole, all children are being very heavily targeted right now. So to say that this is some sort of like targeted sterilization thing, all kids are being sterilized. And it's all mentally ill kids are being sterilized. And we can draw those parallels to pretend that you that it is somehow your lived reality. What those women went through, I think, is shameful. So let's just take a really quick look at what's it called? First Nations Sterilization Program. All right. So again, Dragon, again, that's fine. So Dragon Kiddigan says they are Brit. The government is paying elders and corrupt chiefs to promote this idea. I understand that. They're also paying our teachers too. It is not the same as what happened to women. It is similar though, right? So he was not sterilized against his will. In 2010, he had access to the internet. If they and I'm sorry, but they've always been like honest that they literally ask you if you want to bank gametes, if you want to freeze your sperm. If he does, I'm sorry, if you don't understand that having your testicles removed is going to render you infertile, it is not the same as what women went through. And Dragon, I hear you. I understand drawing those parallels. But to have him, again, LARP that reality as a man who chose to have sex reassignment surgery, I think we're giving him way too much credit. Way too much credit about his agency in all of this. And again, like, him being victimized to the level that women were, he was not a child. He was not a child. Okay? And he absolutely has agency. And he was not sterilized. The way he says it is, I'm a sterilized First Nations woman, transsexual woman. And that has really strong implications, right? No. You self-genitally mutilated. No, and I hear it in Dragon. I hear you. And that's why I'm saying it's dangerous, because it just kind of creates this convolution, because it is a legitimate parallel. It is a legitimate parallel. They're not the same thing. They're not the same thing. And to say that, that First Nations people, again, it's First Nations people that were directly targeted for racial reasons, right? And they might be promoting it amongst First Nations people, but they weren't going around and telling First Nations people, hey, we want to do a program where we're going to sterilize women, right? You want to hop on board and telling the chiefs about it, right? It's like, people in 2024 have an understanding that these children are going to be rendered infertile. And again, back in 1973 and prior 1913 and 1920 and 1930, people didn't have access to information about how these medical technologies worked and things like that. He went into with much greater understanding what was happening. These women didn't sign the level of consent forms and things like that. So again, that's why I respect people like these, like honest detransitioners, people like Prisha, people like Richie, and even Shapeshifter, who, they still acknowledge their agency in everything. And I think it's a dangerous thing when we pretend that people have completely no agency whatsoever, especially when they're adults, which doesn't make it okay, right? These doctors absolutely have a high level of responsibility too. They have a greater level of responsibility, because they're supposed to be the experts and all that sort of stuff. But it is not the same. It's not the same. And I don't think we need to conflate the lived traumas and experiences of women with some man who wanted to be able to sleep with straight men, and he thought he was going to get a vagina. Let's see. and me, again, and people are free to disagree with me on that. You can say, no, Bray, it is the same thing. They're tantamount to each other, and it's still an extension of the sterilization program. It never ended, and that's fine. You're welcome to take that. But to imply that I'm racist because I don't agree with allowing a male, to appropriate a female tragedy so that he can like garner sympathy for himself does not make me racist. Like, go ahead with that. No, I hear you, Dragon. I didn't read all of your stuff, right? I'm not saying against you at all. Like, I hear what you guys are all saying. Let's see. And I can't even keep up with the chat. So you probably, added more clarification that I didn't read. But I will read it back later. Again, in the 1960s and 70s, well, that's not true because this happened way before the 60s. It ended in the 70s. The Indian Health Services, the IHS, and collaborating physicians sustained a practice of performing sterilizations on Native American women, in many cases without the free and informed consent of their patients. So let's look at this. I guess that was, okay, so maybe it had been good. The practice had pre-existed the 60s. I know that, right? But it sounds like there was, I know like they legislated it actually at one point. So like really quick, just so that we can pay homage and recognize that this is something that was going on. And again, I think that in the case of sterilizing children is more tantamount to this. He was an adult, right? He was a fully grown adult man. And he's a gay man. So again, it's like a homosexual dating strategy. Whereas I think, with children, and it's not like, it's not this exact same thing, whatever. Okay. And it's not only targeting, Indigenous, it's all Canadian children are really at a major risk of this. And they might have, their own specialized targets and things like that. But, it's not, whatever. All right. Traditionally, Indigenous women commanded the highest respect in their communities as water carriers and givers of life. They are sacred and powerful beings because they birthed the whole world. Facts. Unfortunately, racism, sexism, colonialism has disrupted respect for Indigenous peoples and women. As a result, it has perpetuated violence, including the forced and coerced sterilization of Indigenous women and girls. Coerced sterilization refers to the practice of sterilizing Indigenous women without free and informed consent. Based on eugenics beliefs and policies, sexual sterilization acts were passed in Alberta, 1928 to 19. So he's from Alberta, 72, British Columbia, 1933 to 1973, and were not repealed until the 1970s. Now, again, I think what it would have been powerful is if he had, had the integrity to come out as a detransitioner and stop fucking claiming that you're a transsexual woman, which you're not, and it's vile. Okay, you're not a transsexual woman, you're trans nothing. He says that he's a man, but then he uses she, her pronouns, uses the women's bathroom, and calls himself a transsexual woman. Okay, what would have been powerful is if you had come out as a detransitioner and said, I got this surgery, under the idea that I would be receiving a vagina, which is a false pretense. Of course he was notified that he would be sterilized. I mean, I wasn't there, but like, if you don't know that, having your testicles removed, then like, that's a whole other issue. And it's like, if you would have come out and been like, listen, as I'm a now detransitioned man, I want to speak out against what's going on. I'm from Alberta, a place where we have, traditionally endured the assault on our people to aid in the eugenics-based genocide of Indigenous peoples, wherein my people experienced, these forced sterilizations. What's going on across the world where, with gender clinics, aimed at children, and gender clinics aimed at, mentally ill and distressed adults, is very much in keeping, from the lessons that we learned through what happened to our women. I want to draw awareness to the sort of parallels. And I think that that's totally valid. I think, though, in the way that he presents himself, he's absolutely appropriating as though he is one of those sterilized Indians. He always says, I am a sterilized Indian. I'm a sterilized, what's it called? Sterilized, transsexual woman, right? Oh, is Richie in here? Richie's the best. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, again, and that's what makes it like slippery and stuff, because he's still appropriating womanhood by calling himself a transsexual woman and using she, her, women's bathrooms. And the way that he's representing it is still an appropriation of this. And I don't think it's like, no, getting like SRS surgery that you signed up for and pushed for and begged for, and it's not like they came to him and were like, hey, you should get this, right? He's the one who heard about it and decided that he wanted it, right? So coerced sterilization. So what did Richie say? Hold on, let's see what I did. All right. Oh, Richie, wait a second. Are you telling me I can't have kids? Like, right. You know what I mean? It's like, and if you're an adult, and it's like, there's this one case. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, all right. Coerced sterilization refers to the practice of sterilizing Indigenous women without free and informed consent based on eugenics beliefs and policies. Sexual Sterilization Act. So they actually passed it in law, that this was like okay in law. And it's like, Canada has some dark history. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they really need to like chill. Alberta, 1928 to 1970. Okay, yeah. So the Sexual Sterilization Acts were passed in Alberta between 1928 to 1972, and British Columbia to 1933 to 1972. Okay, so it was from the. So I said 1913. I guess I meant 1933 and 1928. So the earliest was 1928. They actually passed it into law that they were going to try to sterilize and end this, nation of peoples, which is horrific. And I would like, it would be very interesting to hear him speak on that, right? But not from a point of him still claiming to be a transsexual woman and him like implying that he was sterilized within the same experience that these women were. Sir, that was not your experience, okay? You can draw those parallels without trying to pretend like that's you. They were not repealed until the 70s. Under the acts, a board of eugenics could order sterilization of institutionalized patients to beget or bear children who, by reason of inheritance, would have a tendency to serious mental disease or mental deficiency. So basically, mentally ill people. That's again, that's a good parallel there, right? But it's not exactly the same. Research, because again, this was written in law. This is written in law as this is why we're doing this. This is an intentional eugenics thing, right? And I'm not saying that what we're doing now is not eugenics, but it's not aimed simply at First Nations people. All, Canadian children are being impacted, but it is, it's legitimate for him to focus on it, within the history and framework of First Nations people, and to prioritize how it's affecting that community, right? But it's like, again, there's just that's what makes this like complex, whatever. Research demonstrates that 74% of all Aboriginals presented to the board were eventually sterilized, compared to 60% of all patients presented. In her book, An Act of Genocide, Stote documents 580 sterilizations across Canada in Indian hospitals. Oh, so it was mentally ill people, and they just... more often, there was a 14% discrepancy where they did it 14% higher with Indigenous people. But it's not only Indigenous people who were subject to this. Between 1966 and 1976, but I'm sure that they were like targeted, like a lot. It is estimated that more than 1,200 sterilizations, approximately 1,150 Indigenous women and 50 remaining men or undocumented sex were sterilized from 1966 to 1976. More than 70 sterilizations performed on women in Nunavut. Let's see. In October, hold on, let me make this smaller. In October 2017, a proposed class action lawsuit was filed in Saskatchewan, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering those words, from more than 100 women across Canada who reported they were forced to be or were coercively sterilized. Again, it's not the same. He was not forced to get like a sex simulation, a synthetic sex surgery, so that he could simulate the genitals of women, because he doesn't respect us and he, sees us as like an object. However, and actually, Richie was actually pushed through. Like in his story, he was like, I'm not sure how I feel. And they were basically like, you've got to get this or else you're no longer going to be able to be seen by the clinic for other things and you'll lose your spot and, all this sort of stuff. However, although Elisa Lombard indicated that she was contacted by approximately 100 women, not all of them were from Saskatchewan. Let's see. I wanted, like, there was one that had, like, this is beautiful. Oh, look at this artwork, guys. God, I can't listen. Like, trust me, as, like, its own issue, this to me is, like, something that I really connect with, right? And as a birth worker and as a mother, and I understand how precious, like, if that, I can't imagine. And it's evil, and it's to basically cause these beautiful cultures, these precious cultures, these rare cultures, and these endangered cultures to go extinct. And once it's gone, it's gone. Once we lose it forever. Right. So anyway, so like I said, I just, it's the way that he feels like he's directly appropriating that experience of women as a male, rather than highlighting the parallels. So let's get into him. Oh, I found this that I thought was really interesting. Xatlantic apparently had covered him a while ago. I haven't even listened to this yet. Literally just now before I logged in, I found this, and I didn't know that she had covered it. So let's hear what she has to say about Lois. I have no idea what. So it sounds like we're going to agree, because I went in. His whole self-deletion thing is really vile. It's really vile, and there's a lot there. And it sounds like I'm interested to hear what she has to say. And based on the title alone, it sounds like we came to some pretty similar conclusions.
So a number of you sent me this article and asked for my thoughts on it, so I'll share them. When you are considering this person's claim that they are planning to hurt themselves in the future, you must recognize that this is a person that's also followed through on elaborate self-harm intentions in the past. And so they are a person who is threatening suicide very publicly. And it's a credible threat. When you are on the receiving end of a credible threat of suicide, or even a non-credible threat, it is traumatic. And so I encourage people who are very worried about this individual to take a step back and worry about their own feelings and the way that they have been harmed by the fact that this person so casually is threatening suicide in such a public manner, not caring who he hurts, not caring what trauma he brings up. You need to ask yourself why he is doing this, and whether a person that was considerate about the emotional lives of other people, whether they might have gone about it in a different manner. I imagine he thinks he's doing it for some sort of greater good, but the reality is he is forcing us to contemplate that he may end his life in the near future. Threatening suicide is not a nice thing to do. And it is often weaponized by abusive personalities to manipulate. And whether such a personality is that way for illness or some other reason, this is not beyond my pay grade to say. But I do know that I am a survivor of somebody that regularly threatened to end their lives and then died under suspicious circumstances. And I know what it's like to be invested in preventing a suicide and then to have to live with the self-blame after the fact. if you are close to somebody who is threatening suicide, you need to recognize that that's probably not a safe situation for you. Most likely, it's above your pay grade, and it's okay to take care of yourself, to protect yourself from somebody that's not protecting you. I hope this individual finds appropriate help and appropriate support and an appropriate outlet for these feelings and these intentions.
See, this is why I love Xlansic. Like, this is Xlansic without the agenda or social constraints. This is before she was like friendly with Eva and them and whatever. This is like the unfiltered, and this is the truth. She is absolutely right. I didn't listen to that until I just now played it. And that's why when I just came on here and said that my feelings about Eva have changed, I actually now see her as a victim. I'm actually concerned for her. Absolutely. This guy, I feels like he has her in an emotional chokehold. And anybody who sees their relationship as like endearing or cute, you can tell by the way that she feels the need to constantly incorporate him in everything. Somebody was saying that she has a wife of over almost 10 years who she's planning a family with. And it seems like this relationship of this emotionally abusive man has overshadowed everything in her life and has become like an all-consuming thing of her. And I'm sorry, with all due respect, Anna Slats, if you love and care about your friend, at a certain point, maybe take a look at the codependency that's going on between her and this abusive man. He's an abuser. This is abusive behavior. He doesn't care how it hurts other people. When they talk about him, we're going to go through how cavalier he is when he talks about it on Benjamin Boyce. Eva breaks down crying. And he gets like a little like smug smirk. Like, yeah, I'm another dead Indian. She's crying. Of course she probably does care about him, And then she probably thinks that, oh my God, if I don't constantly, handhold him and support him and include him, I got to be careful about how I talk about these broader issues, because she's probably constantly thinking about him. And if you even somebody who had showed an example of how she always seems to add a caveat in her writing, where she doesn't make these firm stances where she's like, oh, but not all trans people are like that. She adds like little disclaimers that create a safe space for, her bestie. This all-encompassing Duchess Lois. This guy is an absolute narcissist. Of like literally at first I was like, yeah, maybe he's just like cringe and just lame. And like my bigger issue was that, we can't allow these guys to pretend that like they're transsexual, that they're somehow different. The more I read and listened to him and heard more about him, I actually started to realize how actually sinister he was. And I thought Eva was the more cringe one. I'm starting to actually be concerned for her. This guy is dangerous. And he's gross. And it's also like, if you're in a relationship with a man who threatens, suicide or to harm himself, if you leave him or whatever the case may be, if he doesn't get what he wants, that is a really dangerous red flag that he could hurt you. Right? Some of the most dangerous men are men who are at a point where they don't care if they live or die. And those are the type of men who aren't afraid taking anybody with them or bringing anybody with them or lashing out. That's a really dangerous situation. And it seems like she's handcuffed to this guy. Like she's handcuffed to him. Like in every situation, she's got to mention him. You would never even know that she had a wife because her timeline is so dominated by him. It seems like he dominates her. She has to join him on interviews. And he is not intelligent or engaging. It was like Benjamin Boyce had to sit there and like keep trying to draw. Like when you ask someone a question, they give you like a one-word answer. And you're like, oh, okay, well, how did that make you feel? And they give you another one-word answer. And you're like, all right, and you keep trying to like ask more like questions to kind of like, you know, lead them and like help them like get into a flow, and they just won't work with you. It's like you've got to sit there and do the like all of the work. You're like, bro, just fucking talk or something. Like I like what okay, keep going. Why do I have to sit here and like handhold you through your story? Which is like what it was. She's handcuffed to this weirdo. And I think anybody who actually like loves her and cares about her would really check in with that and take a look at it. And she's not going to notice it. You know, that's what happens when you get codependent with an abuser. It's very hard to see what's going on. It's like the frog who will boil themselves to death. If you drop a frog into a pot of boiling water, they'll freak out and jump out because it's such a huge temperature differential. But if you put a frog in lukewarm water and slowly boil them over time, they'll boil to death. Why? Because they're not noticing these incremental changes. It's very a gradual boiling, and they will allow themselves to get hurt. And that's what can happen to, you know, they might say, no, I'm fine. And he's my best friend. And I stand with him. The way he treats her is abusive. This is an abuser, like clear as day. And Exelanzic clearly caught on to it a while ago. A while ago, she noticed it. And I'm so glad I happened to stumble across that. Nobody sent that to me. Literally, as I was quick looking up the one article that I wanted to share with him, and I ran across that. I was like, ooh. And she exactly hit on everything that I felt. This guy's dangerous. So yeah, I actually now, this is to me, it's like a call for concern for Eva. And she might not want to hear it, but it's not what she wants, it's what she needs. So someone needs to check in with them. And Boyce is for surprise, actually is like saying the quiet parts out loud. You can tell that Boyce is like thinks that this guy is also like, you know what I mean? Is like he's like low key calling him out. Listen to how gross. So I had to write down some timestamps of this guy. Yeah, this guy uses his like identity a lot and claims like he's being like discriminated against in ways that he has no way to substantiate. So again, it's true. He's very much falling back on identity politics a lot to like, you know, and I'm not saying that Indigenous people don't face things and whatever, but it's no. He's also uses it to be abusive. Another reason why, and I want to read a couple of these tweets too. So he constantly talks about the reason why his reasons for wanting to die are so selfish. And he posted this picture of him at a baptism with his like niece, his baby niece, and like people in his family. It's like you have like family around you, and you're constantly like putting. So this is like this whole idea of you wanting to die is looming over everybody's head every day, all the time, because he constantly says, "Oh, I'm gonna reapply. I'll be one dead Indian. You can't change my mind." So everybody who loves this guy or is involved with this guy is constantly living with this looming thing of, oh my God, when are they going to accept it? What's going to happen? Are you really going to go through with it? He's, yep, I sure am. Going to be another dead Indian. And it's just like, you piece of shit. You piece of shit. Like, I'm sorry. Ew. It's really gross. And then, so, oh God, I want to like, hold on, I'm going to retweet it if I can find it really fast. All right, I'm going to try to find something that there's so much and I want to make sure I cover everything.
All right. What about the other post-ops?
All right, really quick, I want to go back again to his intro, okay? Because his intro matters. Because it's, you know, no, I don't mean to do this.
To facilitate her checking out. Without further ado, here is Eva.
Yeah. Hold on, let's just listen to Boyce's intro.
Called, or euphemistically called, That's her Twitter title. Just a few days ago, Lois expressed her deep discontent with the path of medical transition that she underwent, including hormones and what is colloquially called,
So Abigail Mills says, I don't, not to be crass or anything, but I don't understand why he's so obsessed with legal help for unaliving. Why can't he just basically do it himself? Like, I hate to be that crass or awful, but is this just histrionic shit? Absolutely. Of course, I ask myself the same thing, right? Like, come on, sir. And he says, oh, what I'm looking for isn't actually suicide. No, it's all performance. This is all a big performance. It's abusive. He's an abuser. And honestly, I think Eva's in a bad situation with this guy. Like, at first, like, I was like, fuck you, Eva. I was like, F her, like, she's a clown, blah, 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 blah. Now I'm starting to realize that her behavior, why it's so bizarre, is because she's being emotionally manipulated and blackmailed by this guy, which is another reason we just need to get these men away from us. Get them away from us. Get them away from all women. These are dangerous men, and they're very good at being shifty and glomming their way into things. And how do you think they all got so far? By manipulating women, by weaponizing our empathy, by weaponizing our, they say, oh, Eva's very compassionate. She probably is. Maybe she's on the spectrum. I don't know. She seems like she probably was like not very, I know I said this a bunch of times, and I was listening to it back. I was like, God, I sound like I'm like kind of like being petty and like maybe like bullying her a little bit, because I keep saying how she comes off as somebody who like didn't have a lot of friends growing up. But like, I do kind of say that with like some sincerity, right? Like that's some people's reality, and it just seems like there's like an emotional stunting with her. There's just something like not fully well developed, and that doesn't mean she's a bad person, right? It could be leading to her making these bad decisions, but it's like she might have been love bombed by this guy, who's acting like he connects with her and understands her, and now puts all of this burden on her to carry all this emotional weight for him, and he's this constant victim. He's a constant, if you listen to him, and he expects everybody to handhold him and do things for him, and he wants the government to do everything for him, and why isn't everything for me, and you're not doing stuff for me, and beep, 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 and there's no accountability. It's bad, and it's like, yeah, it's bad. Hold on. This might almost be a whole stream about him, because I do want to get to the Phil Illy thing first, but it's like, this needs to be exposed, okay? This guy belongs nowhere near our movement. He's a creep. And honestly, anyone who loves Eva would like really try to get him away from her. I think that she's not in a healthy situation with this weirdo.
Euphemistically called bottom surgery, and the persistent issues that she has with man-made simulations of female sex organs, and that the Canadian medical industry is just not serving her well, and that she has now applied to MAiDs, which is medical assistance in dying, which is a voluntary
That's so true, Rebecca.
euthanasia program.
God damn it. Sorry. Rebecca Van Tassel says, suicidal people don't tell everybody they meet. You have to look out for peaceful, happy behavior. They have made peace with their decision. That is so true. The people who are most likely to actually follow through are people who don't publicize what they're doing, because they don't want to be talked out of it. They've already made their decision. They know what they're going to do, and there's no more negotiating it. It's whenever people sit there and talk about like wanting to hurt themselves, who are really begging for help and actually begging to be talked out of it, right? Anybody who says, and people should take stuff like that seriously. And Excellent is right. This is a credible threat from somebody who has a history of severe self-harm in the past. But it's also like, I actually don't think he'll ever actually go through with it. I think he realizes how much he's able to control people through this. You can tell, you know what I mean? I think that this is part of the joy, is controlling people through hurting himself. But again, it's like people have to treat it as a real threat. So yeah, of course, if he was serious, he wouldn't have to go, he wouldn't sit there and be like, I was denied, so I guess there's nothing I can do. I'm just gonna have to wait and reapply. And I tell my mom that, you know, I am gonna move forward with this. And it's like, you're a real not a good person.
That is going on up in Canada. That tweet that she wrote went rather viral, gained a lot of attention, and she was kind enough, along with her friend Eva, to join me to speak more about her reasoning behind deciding to utilize Canada's medical industry to facilitate her checking out. Without further ado, here is Eva and Lois.
Yes, hi, I'm just Lois. So I am a sterilized First Nations post-op transsexual woman of 14 years living in Alberta.
Let's listen to that again, okay? I'm gonna make him really, really big, and let me put on the closed captions. All right. I want just him in this. Well, now let's put her in it too, because she does need to be held accountable for supporting this guy and his dangerous narrative and push. And Eva, shame on you. Shame on you for pushing this disgusting and like story, knowing that suicidal ideation clusters, knowing that it clusters. What a horrible thing to sit there and listen. And it's even for people like Richie or people like Richard and Amende and people who have, you know, a shapeshifter. This is why I don't care what some of these rad femmes say, and they get mad that I'm supportive of shapeshifter. And I understand that there are some concerns because he still wears dresses and stuff. But shapeshifter does talk about being, I don't know if I should keep saying the word, wanting to self-delete. And he is candid about that, but he always ends it with, but I don't actually want to do that. I want to be here and I want to live. I'm just dealing with feelings of feeling that way. And so he always ends it with a plan for him to pull himself out of that. If you ever listen to him, he says, I'm feeling like I want to give up and I'm just in a really dark place right now, but I don't actually want to let that happen. He said, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to log off for a few days. I'm going to just try to spend some time with like my cats and my boyfriend. You know, there's a concert coming up, so I'm going to focus on self-care, you know, and I promise I'll like check in with you guys. Right? It's like, you know, and he's saying that he's being honest, that this is how I'm feeling, and he's reaching out. And he's, and, you know, comes back and says, like, listen, your guys' support means so much. Like, I do want to be here. I do want to live. You know, it's just so hard. Sometimes I get trapped in these like ruminating ideas, and he's honest about it. He's not glamorizing it. He's not like, oh, this is what I'm doing. And it's, I'm going to fight for my right to do it. And you can't talk me out of it. Nope, nope, nope. You know, and it's just like, again, this is why this guy's an abuser. And that's why, you know, and I respect like shapeshifter for that, but it's like, we're saying that, and Eva, you're platforming this awful, almost cretinous guy and his cretinous story, where he's basically saying that the only reason that he wants to pursue that, and his reasons are, it's not because of chronic pain. He said that he had pain for 3 months and the pain subsided. He said he's no longer in pain. He said that he's just angry because his life is going to be long and boring now. That's literally, I have timestamps. His life is going to be long and boring, and basically he's not able to have children. And he keeps saying how he's assisting in the genocide of his people because he you know, destroyed his own fertility. But sir, so what are you saying? You're a homosexual man. So you were never going to have you have a non-reproductive sexuality. So what does that mean? Would you have used a surrogate? So would you have rented the body of a woman? Is that why you're feeling sorry for yourself, that you can't rent a woman to go carry your child for you and then abuse that mother and that baby by ripping them apart at the moment of birth and traumatizing both of them? But we're all supposed to feel so sorry for poor Duchess Lois, again, whose whole shtick seems to be like, woe is me, I'm this, you know, bleeding heart victim. And shame on you, Eva, for platforming this. I understand you're probably being abused by him, but you have agency too. You're an adult. Grow up. I understand if you didn't, you know, like have a lot of maturity or didn't have a lot of experiences as a young person, and maybe you were like a weirdo and didn't have a lot of friends, and so you just are a late bloomer. But no more excuses. You're an adult. Grow up. This is vile. This man is vile, and you have no business co-signing this. What message are you sending to other detransitioners who are listening, who are also feeling, you know, hopeless or in a lot of pain, and who are looking out for help or support? What message does that send to them? What message is that sending to Richie? What message is that sending to Shapeshifter or Richard? You know, or any of these other detransitioners who I'm sure go through days of struggle. Oh, here's the blueprint. Oh, here's a blueprint for how you can just end your life and destroy the lives of everyone around you. Here's how I'm doing it, and you can do it too. And he's fighting to make it more accessible. That's like his big fight. But yeah, great activism, Eva. You're killing it. That's because so Natalie Vu says Eva seems so mesmerized by him. He's weird because he's an abuser, and he's latched onto her as his like handler and is abusing her now. And she has Stockholm syndrome and doesn't even see it. Listen to him. Listen to how he describes himself, though. Listen to how he describes himself.
To facilitate her checking out. Without further ado, here is Eva and Lois.
Yes, hi, I'm just Lois. So I'm a sterilized First Nations post-op transsexual woman of 14 years living in Alberta on Treaty 6 territory. Is that good? I don't know.
That's great. Fabulous.
Okay. You're not a woman. You're not a transsexual. What you did to your penis still is there. It's just been mutilated, right? You still have your penis. It's just mutilated and it's up inside of you and it's messed up now. So being a transsexual would imply that you transitioned your sex. You did none of that. You're not a woman. How dare you? You're not a she, her. You're a man. You sit there and you'll say that you're a man whenever it scores you gender critical points, you know, points with the gender criticals, but you LARP as a woman, you use women's restrooms. You're not you weren't sterilized. You're not a sterilized First Nations woman. Because again, that has a lot of political implications, right? When you say I'm a sterilized First Nations woman, that carries the weight of historical trauma that women experience. You didn't go through that. You went and signed up to get your penis inverted because you thought it was going to build you social capital for your dating life. And I am sorry that it didn't work out. And I'm sure you were misled about how it was going to turn out. And that's what a lot of these men were totally misled. But that is not the same as what Indigenous women had forced onto them as part of a eugenics program. I really can't wait to talk to Richie. Richie, I got to email you.
My
Fancy.
turn?
Yeah, Eva.
All right. Well, I'm Eva Kurilova. You may know me as Canada's preeminent lesbian on Twitter, and I do some writing, and I'm just here as a friend to talk.
Hi, I'm Nicole
She's
Hoffman
there
from Sandy
as
Hook Promise.
oh God, it's so sad. She's there as his handler because I guess he has to drag her to everything. Okay, so let's see, 27. Let me try. Oh God, I'm getting long-winded. 2740. Here we go. Hold on. Wait, let me make it smaller. Like, why does she need what? Like, why? And he's so not an interesting speaker. And I'm sorry, the Kermit the Frog. Where's my So I am a transgender woman, and I am a sterilized First Nations woman, and I'm trying to access my Canadian government's assisted euthanasia program because I'm not happy with how my gender transformation worked out. And it's the government have ever made blah blah blah. And it's like, bro, like maybe you should work with Xlansic. Like Xlansic has probably some resources for your like speech. And she'll probably get so mad at me for like teasing him about that. But like, it's also he puts on this like he's putting on a voice, and it's just very interesting.
My province.
And I'm sorry if you abuse women, we deserve to make fun of you.
In our country.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Are they receiving? It's not just myself. It's just it's bigger than me. But then it's like, well, okay, well, I'm experiencing this within my province. I shouldn't have to be going through 3 months of pain with no referrals, and instead of it just being we as females experience.
I shouldn't have to be going through 3 months of pain and no referrals. He literally admitted that he was only in pain for 3 months. This isn't chronic pain.
Vaginal atrophy. Well, no, I need you to believe in biological realities here. I'm not female. And then, like, what does my pronouns have to do with an interaction that is one-on-one? Or what does my why do you get to redefine my sexuality? And then it's garbage. It's too politically woke. It's an institution that's captured by gender identity ideology. Thank you, Eva.
All right, hold on.
And so you're not able to, you're not engaged with doctors who can take you and your body seriously enough to pinpoint the problems going on as a result of what they did to your body.
Where would I access that healthcare? See, like, I'm coming from on reserve. I have to go off reserve to access healthcare. And then so many doctors are captured by the...
All right, 2955 was another one.
But is just to push back a little bit.
No, seriously.
City, because the first ones that I see are my primary doctors or an ER doctor or ER nurse. Like, do I go to a bigger city? Like, which specialist do I see? Because I was referred to the gender clinic where it's just nonsense.
But is just to push back a little bit, is it not also participating in some form of genocide to submit to medical assistance in dying? Some sort of...
Oh, it's already happened. I already, with genocide, I already contributed to it by becoming sterilized.
Yeah.
So there's nothing for me to add further to, because I'm a sterilized Indian. So what happens to me, it's still gonna, even if I die a natural death, I'm still a statistic.
I'm still a statistic. I'm a sterilized Indian, which is a statistic, again, which is inappropriately conflating conflating what he did to himself with at least some personal agency to what happened to Indigenous women that was done to them. They didn't sign consent forms to be sterilized, Lois. You signed consent forms. You went and looked up these doctors. You were the one chronically online and thought that this was going to work out for you. I'm still a statistic. The reason why you are a homosexual male, which is a non-reproductive sexuality, you do not impregnate somebody by having anal sex with another man. That's not how reproduction works. You know, and I'm actually starting to think that maybe you are genuinely confused if you pretend that you didn't know that you were going to be infertile after having these, infertile after having these procedures done. maybe you actually are confused about basic anatomy and physiology of reproduction, but like, let me help you out. Your sexuality is a non-reproductive sexuality. So when you sit there and you talk about how, oh, I've been sterilized now, I'm helping to assist in a statistic of being a sterilized Indian, and I'm contributing to the genocide of my people. Sir, you weren't going to have children regardless unless you were going to buy a baby and rent a woman and abuse her and abuse that baby so that you can have a biological legacy because you're selfish, which is disgusting and hasn't like, I mean, again, I don't want to keep bringing up RouXX. Isn't RouXX staunchly against what's it called, surrogacy? Haven't they bringing up surrogacy? And again, this is what, Anna Slats is like, why are you bringing up RouXX in it? And I'm not trying to bring them up because I think that they are consistent, and I think that Anna Slats and Genevieve are consistent, but Eva is, you're employing her to write for you. And I'm not saying that she can't do the job at hand, but, she also seems to hold a lot of positions that are diametrically opposed to a lot of the, our women's rights positions. Okay, renting women so that you can have them gestate a baby for you and then stealing that baby from that mother within moments after birth, creating lifelong trauma for both of them, which is child abuse, and it's abuse of a woman, is vile. It's disgusting. Who is this guy? This is the real extra special trans woman who's a really good one. This is one of the good ones. That's scary.
So why not go out on my own terms that I qualify for?
So he's saying that because he can't, rent a woman's womb, because he's got, sterilized himself, again, self-sterilized, not the same as what happened to Indigenous women. That's why I should be able to go out on my own terms. That's why he wants to self-delete. Because again, it's because I don't get to get what I want because I have some consequences to decisions that I made that I was forewarned about. I'm experiencing consequences and I'm not getting what I want. So I'm gonna KILL myself and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Ew. I don't understand what is likable about this guy at all.
Assistance in dying, some sort of.
Oh, it's already happened. I already, with genocide, I already contributed to it by becoming sterilized.
Yeah.
For city, like which specialist do I see? Because I was referred to the gender clinic where it's just nonsense.
But is just to push back a little bit, is it not also participating in some form of genocide to submit to medical assistance in dying? Some sort of.
Oh, it's already happened. I already, with genocide, I already contributed to it by becoming sterilized.
Yeah.
So there's nothing for me to add further to because I'm a sterilized Indian. So what happens to me, it's still gonna. Even if I die a natural death, I'm still a statistic. So why not go out on my own terms that I qualify for? Yeah.
So on your own terms, as opposed to what?
Living a long, boring life with the high possibility of having the vaginas collapse.
He's all giggling and laughing. His response, and Boyce is asking good questions. Love or hate Boyce, and trust me, Boyce is gross and creepy in his own way and has his own issues, and I understand all that criticism. Boyce is asking all the right questions and is actually challenging this guy. And he said, well, as opposed to what? Going out on your own terms as opposed to what? He said, as opposed to living a long, boring life. And remember, I called it before. I called it yesterday, even when I was listening back, and I was like, "Am I making too many? Like, am I being too presumptuous, and too subjective by saying that I felt like he was feeling sorry for himself, and that this has to do with like him not getting boyfriends and stuff?" But no, I'm right. I'm sorry. My internal alarm, my internal gut instincts are so on point. I'm sorry. I don't care. I'm gonna toot my own horn. There's so many times where I have like these just gut instincts about people, and then I go and I look into them more, and I'm right. And it's like, everyone got mad, but he's saying that because he would have a long, boring life, and then his vagina might collapse in. Hey, sir, you realize that women have different gynecological issues that happen. Where we have like a uterine prolapse, pelvic floor prolapse, things like that because of childbirth and because of aging and stuff. Women deal with those things too. It doesn't mean you go and traumatize your family. It's just such like a weak, and honestly, it's like a pathetic cop out. You're not even trying to get help. You're just deciding like, it's going to be boring. There's nothing honorable about any of this. It's one thing to say like, I'm really struggling and I need help, and I keep dealing with feelings of just not wanting to be here, and I'm not, I don't want to glamorize it, but like it's like somebody in the live chat yesterday was like, no, I think his story is important to underscore. I think it was maybe even Carol. Somebody was like, but his story is important because it underscores how bad these surgeries are, that it makes him want to not live anymore. And you can do that without glamorizing this MAiD process. You can do, like I said, Shapeshifter has had honest conversations about his feelings a lot. And he doesn't do it in a way that makes me feel like he's like, would be accidentally influencing other people to hurt themselves, right? He's just like, I'm really struggling right now. I just explained it. I'm struggling right now, and he always gives us a blueprint for how he's going to do his best to deal with those feelings. He tells us what he's feeling, and then he gives us a blueprint for how he's going to try to overcome what he's feeling. And he also reminds us that he doesn't want to feel that way, and the goal is to try to pull himself out of that. Sometimes he'll ask for just emotional support, like, hey guys, like today is like, I'm really actually having a tough time. And it's like, so when people pour support into him, unlike this guy who's just like, yep, I'm gonna be one dead Indian soon. Like, you hear Shapeshifter actually saying like, thank you so much, guys. Like, it really does help me when I like read these messages of support. I sometimes I need to hear that. We all do. And everybody says like, whenever like somebody is saying like, oh, I want to hurt myself, everyone's like, yeah, it's just a cry for attention. It's like, you're right. It is a cry for attention. And that's not a bad thing. We're social creatures. Sometimes we need attention. Sometimes we need to feel like the world to see that we're hurting, and we need people to reach out to us, and it's okay to say like, I'm not okay right now. I need people to see that, right? And then, it's okay to respond to that. It's not just like, I just ignore him, he's just looking for attention. No. It's okay to pour into those people and say, listen, like, we love you. We see you. Like, please, I hear that you're calling for attention. Like, here, I'm here. I hear you, and as a reminder that you're not alone, and people hear you when you call out for help. Right? And then it's like Shapeshifter will always like let us know that it's helpful. Like, thank you guys, you're helping me get, I'm just trying to take it one day at a time. And, and then he'll let us know when he's feeling better. Like, he's like, a couple times he's like, listen, I spent the weekend, we had a lot of fun with friends, and I'm just feeling better overall. I had a cute outfit on. Like, he'll add these little like more positive things. And you see him actively trying to work through the darkness. He's not just saying, oh, like, here's the dark part, and then leaving it at that. It's like he's being responsible. It's like they always say that it's actually not bad to fight in front of your kids or to have arguments in front of your children, like you and your husband or whatever. It's actually a good thing. The difference between being toxic and being productively fighting in front of children is being toxic is when it's about how you fight. It's being toxic is, throwing names back and forth at each other, being vicious, trying to break each other down, and then showing no resolution at the end, right? A positive way to fight in front of children is to have a disagreement, listen to the other person, tell them how you're feeling, and then always make sure if you start a fight in front of a child, you also need to show the resolution in front of that child. The child needs to see how you guys resolved it, like in love and, in compassion and respect, right? So it's okay to show these more like difficult sides of things, right? People don't necessarily need to be shielded from that, but it's being responsible while you do it. And then show the resolution or show how you're working towards a resolution. And if you're not going to do that, you have absolutely no business. If this is that, then it becomes just like you are just looking for attention and it's becoming negative, right? So here.
With no help, no health care. So when it collapses and I go to where it's a gender clinic to get reconstructive surgery, like why aren't I able to have preventative measures happen before that happens?
Susie Glucksman says, I was shown the exact wrong way to fight by my parents and years of therapy followed. And I know, and that's the thing. And it's like you see like these two different things. It's like you either have parents who are horrible to each other and they fight terribly, and they show you how to be vicious and cruel. Or I know parents, my best friend, her mom and dad were like ice cold. They never fought. We never saw conflict, but they also never interacted. They were never warm to each other. And the dad would always like, stonewall the mom and just be like real, like, repress everything that he was thinking or feeling. And they would just like avoid everything together, right? And then I saw, my best friend who I love, who's brilliant. She's brilliant. She's one of the people that I cherish the most in my life. But like, she also had to learn, like, she was always the type of person to like bottle things up and didn't know how to like deal with conflict or didn't know how to like engage in conflict. She would just avoid and deflect and stonewall, right? Because she wasn't shown how. That's why conflict is okay to show in front of children and okay to engage in front of children. It's be conscious as you're doing it. Know that children are watching you. Don't take cheap shots at each other. Let it be like issue oriented and speak how you feel and let them, you can say how you feel about something. And I hurt me when this happened, or I was feeling frustrated, or I'm confused about why, like I said, and then show the resolution, show how you work through it. Even if you don't come to a perfect resolution, show how you're working towards a resolution. And give your child the gift, the opportunity to see how those things get resolved. Or it's not just like, screw you, leave me alone and whatever. It's important because it's like, this idea where we have to be so perfect in front of our kids, it's not sustainable. It's not possible. Even if you do slip up and you show emotion that you regret your children seeing, tell them that. I'm really sorry that you saw me get like that. I'm sorry that you saw me, whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? Like lose my cool over there. And that wasn't okay. And you know what I mean? And I'm embarrassed or whatever. Like we don't have to be perfect in front of our kids, but we need to be conscious and thoughtful about how they're experiencing that. Right. And it's the same thing. That's the thing. If you're going to be an influencer, if you're going to be, if you're going to put yourself out there and be in the spotlight and go take interviews and create like a persona for yourself and talk about these very, very like sensitive, fragile topics about people with transition regret, that is a very fragile group of people that you are talking to. You have a responsibility. You absolutely have a responsibility to be conscious and aware about the messages that you're sending. and about how you're framing your struggle. It doesn't mean you need to hide things that you're going through. And there are going to be some things that you just need to go through with your own support system. You can't treat the internet as your primary support system. You know, is it like, oh, I'm coming to you guys, like, you know, for, it's like what Isaac Uncooked. Isaac, I've had to flip out on him a few times. I really went in on him hard, like even before he like retransitioned and all that sort of stuff. But like way back in the day, when he was doing all those crazy live streams talking about substance abuse and wanting to unalive himself and all this other stuff, I was like, you better knock that the F off. I don't know what type time you're on. I said, but you know, as a mother, I don't appreciate knowing that you have so many like young and frankly irresponsible people, or like children, young people who probably don't have a lot of like oversight from the adults in their life, who are listening to you, and you know that, and you're having these weirdo meltdowns on live. It's one thing if you do it and you're like dissociative, but you wake up the next day and you're like, bro, I got to take that down. What was I thinking? But you leave it up. How dare you? You know, it's like, that's why, you know, I try to like take it as like a serious responsibility that I have people who are listening to me. You know what I mean? That's why even like when I fight with people, when I get mad at other, you know, people in this movement, knowing that people are looking up to me, you know, I try to like fight fair, you know? And that's why, again, like with Exolansic, I don't want it to be like anybody who's like, you know, especially putting a lot of weight in my opinions and my words, you know, I want to be fair, where it's like, no, I don't hate her. You know, I have a lot of care for her, you know, and right now, whatever the hell's going on, and I still feel how I feel about a certain things, but it's like, you know, doesn't mean that as a whole person, whatever. We need to have you have to have some level of responsibility to your audience. Clearly, you don't have any, sir. And Eva, shame on you. Clearly, you don't either. Both of you. Shame on both of you. And I do think that Eva's being abused. And I think that what they're doing is really, really irresponsible. Let's hear, hold on, what were the other timestamps? 29:50, hold on.
Okay.
Like, I'm doing everything that I can. I'm doing the maintenance required. And then, yeah, something happened. I experienced depth loss, so I had to add a second dilation, which was extremely painful. But then it corrected itself one day, and I'm like, okay, I'm good for now, but where do I go next time?
So he's basically saying all the issues that he's saying are the reasons why he wants to access the assisted euthanasia, the medically assisted assistance in death, have all been resolved. So apparently the so-called chronic pain that only lasted 3 months has been resolved. Then he had an issue where he had to dilate an extra time a week. Oh no. Oh boy. What about people who are paralyzed? Who need to literally like crawl out of their like seat and like crawl up into the like bathtub to you know, take a bath. Like, where's the woman, like, what is it, like, where was the, what was it, man with no arms puts kid in car seat? Hold on, there was this, like, one, like, crazy video. What is it? Oh, God. Whatever, like, it's like, you know, I'm sorry, sir. Like, these are, you know, it's like, it's not like you can't go through, hey, I went through a really tough time in my life. But if you're going to show that, you have the responsibility to also make sure you're leaving a blueprint, you know, where people aren't going to hurt themselves. Yeah, it's probably true. Twisted A. You know, or stuff like this, where it's like, what was the one lady who was, you know, burn victim lady? Oh, that one guy who dances all the time. What's his name? Yeah, this guy. Oh, well, fuck, whatever. Let me see. Yeah, like.
When you wake up in the morning and look in the mirror, what do you think? That I'm still alive and here. I'm just grateful to have everything that I have now, not for what I don't have. What do you have now? Well, I have the ability to put a smile on people's faces, a roof over my head, and I guess I can say confidence. Is there anything that's off limits?
Oh, this channel is like literally the most wholesome channel on the planet. When my boys were little, I used to use this as a way to expose them to children that they might encounter with like different needs and who look different. Right? Because I didn't want them to ever like be caught off guard with like seeing children with disabilities, so that they could ask whatever questions they needed to ask now or learn about it now. So it's like if they ever encountered a kid, they wouldn't be like, oh, you know what I mean? They would be like, no. And I remember that we ended up seeing a kid who had a disability. And I remember my son was like, hey, look, he's kind of like the kid in the video. It was like, exactly. And I was like so grateful for this as a resource for that, you know, because you can like introduce your children to different conditions. And then I explained like that, you know, these children are just like you inside, and it's like, you know, their bodies are just a little bit different, and like, you know, they still want friends and to be loved. Oh God, it was so emotional. I remember like crying like through it, you know, but I was like, oh, and my kids were really sweet and like understanding and like wanted to watch more. This is such a good channel. It's called Special Books for Special Kids. The guy is like a saint. He's like a saint, and he's like really cute. He's just a really like just a sweetheart. Miss Misery Gloom says, I appreciate that, Britt, because so many parents expect me to stop my life and teach their kids about disability like it's my job. Yeah, that's tough. That's really tough. And it's like, ma'am, I don't feel like thinking about this right now. Like, you know, and that's the thing. I just wanted my kids to be like, so that they wouldn't be sitting there staring and stuff like that. I think the reason why is because I think something did happen and they were staring and asking questions. It was like, and then I found this is like, great. Like, let's binge watch a bunch of stuff and get the shock out of the way so that, you know, you can move on to actually just like getting to know kids and knowing that it's okay to be close to them. And there's nothing scary or wrong, you know, but Duchess Lois, maybe in the future is going to have complications with his neovagina. I know Richard Adamemes is already all closed up, you know, and he's so positive. And I'm not saying that you have to be positive at all times. That's like that toxic positivity where it's like we don't leave room for people to just be down and not have an answer. And like I said, even with Shapeshifter, I'm not saying that he always knows exactly how to make himself feel better, but he always leaves with like promises of things that he's going to try. You know, he's not saying that it's definitely going to work, but he's like, listen, I'm down right now, but I promise I'm going to try, you know, and people are like, please here, and give him all these examples and advice. And he's like, no, I promise I'm going to try what you guys are saying. You know what I mean? It's not like he's just trying to drain people of their energy and their emotions by being like, no, there's nothing I can do. It's going to happen no matter what. And everyone's like, please don't. He's like, nope. I'm all decided. Like, listen.
What, do we know what happens when it collapses?
But a collapse is, how is the collapse gender affirming? I have so many questions I want to ask like health professionals, and I get to when I do the process.
Do what process?
the MAiD process. So once my application has been submitted, which will likely be next week. So I'm on my phone. On the 25th. So after the 25th, my application should be submitted. I let them know.
Yeah, Zesty says the guy from Special Books for Special Kids is a wonderful person. He treats everyone like a person, which is rare to find these days. He is a saint. And it's like he's so cute. He's so good at role modeling, like what kinds of questions to ask kids that or how to like start friendships with them. That's why he's always like, hey, like I want to be your friend, you know, like what do you like to do? Like he'll sit with these kids. He lets these kids talk, you know, the mom, or depending on how old the kid is, they'll interview the mom, interview the child, interview some of the siblings, you know, and the dad or whoever. And then after the end, he always sits with the child. He like puts himself in the frame and he sits with the child and shows himself like asking questions and like sitting right next to the kid, showing that like you could have, you know, physical contact right next to the kid. He'll high five them and stuff, ask if they like want to have a hug or whatever, which is so good to role model for children that like you can touch them, you know, they're not, you know, and almost like 10 out of 10 times, he always says, what do you want other kids to know about you? Oh my God, I was like, it's going to make me cry. These kids always say the exact same thing. And it's like, that's just when it comes to kids. He's always like, 10 out of 10 times say, I just want other kids to know that like, I'm a normal kid just like them, you know, and like, I want friends. Like, oh, it's really sweet. He like they're always just like, I'm a normal kid inside and I just want to like, you know, like be friends with people and it's okay to come up to me and it's okay to play with me. Like I don't want you to be scared of me. It's just really sweet. And it's like then you have this jerk off. It's
and the official process begins. It's a 90-day process with their professional, with their assessment team. So I don't know what it looks like. I don't know who the doctors are or psychiatrists. So it starts. It's just a 90-day process. And then whatever after that, then the date could be picked. I can either opt out at any given time. There's no pressure. Nobody's pressuring me. This is just me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
And then it's like so sad that, you know, that I'm like thinking of Eva. She's witnessing one of her friends.
I'll get to talk to you.
I know.
You don't care about that. Oh, that's how you get to control Eva. I feel sorry for Eva. But yet you drag her through this whole experience. And Eva's basically like, oh, I'll get a chance to talk you out of it. And it's like, I'm sure at some level, Eva knows that this is a grift. And I think that maybe the way that Eva justifies it is she thinks that, oh, this is a way to show how bad these surgeries are because this is what it leads for people. We don't need these cheap and vile stunts. Bye, Helena. Thank you. Everyone say thank you to my wonderful Helena Blavatsky, who is my moderator-in-chief. I have other moderators, but Helena is definitely the queen mod. And I appreciate her so much. Yeah, and it's like, what was I gonna say? She like it's like they both, and maybe that's why she's justifying it to herself, but like we do not need these like cheapo moves. We really don't. We don't need these cheap, really like vile, you know, stunts to prove our point. It's the same thing where I said we don't need these true trans people to prove our point. Richie is enough. Prisha is enough. You know, Sinead is enough. You know, we have, you know, Kat Kattinson is enough. Shapeshifter is enough. I need to like brush up on more who are like the good detransitioners. Unfortunately, and this is why I always try to underscore the ones who I think are doing a great job, because there are some that are like, you know, still in a very like narcissistic mindset, and some who are still toxic and not fully out of the gender stuff. And so we need to also be cautious. Just because someone's a detransitioner doesn't mean that they're a great voice to be recommending to people. You know, they could still be toxic and dangerous and not fully deprogrammed. So we do need to be cautious about which detransitioners we're talking about. I mean, for example, the whole Laura, the funk guide, Laura, who is really, really creepy and full of addictions and degenerate behavior. And she was like getting involved with Phil Illy, and we don't want our vulnerable detransitioners to follow them into hell. It would be nice to see like an AA type thing, like an Alcoholics Anonymous for detransitioners, where we could like pair up new detrans. It's kind of like what they do with addicts, right? It's not like you have to have some special degree, but people who have been clean or sober for many, many years, who eventually, have like gone through the whole process and have like done a lot of like work on themselves and document like verifiable work on themselves, and have like really shown themselves to like be a good, leader in the community, and they come and speak or whatever, where you kind of pair them up with these like newcomer detransitioners, because I think it is such a similar process to addiction recovery. I think getting out of the gender culture cult is a lot like addiction recovery. And it would be nice to see systems like that, where we could have like new detransitioners teamed up with, seasoned detransitioners. And they could have these like monthly meetings or weekly meetings or whatever the case may be, where people can share where they are right now. So then you have people who, again, it's a process, right? You're not going to just all of a sudden snap out of it and you're, oh, I'm totally peaked, I'm cured, I'm out of the gender thinking, and Richie's been honest about that. And that's why I appreciate his honesty, because rather than like lying and be like, oh no, I'm totally out of the cult, and then letting some, bad behaviors start to come through where he's like being dishonest about it. He even said in one of his tweets, he was like, yeah, if I find myself getting sucked back in sometimes. I find myself like struggling with it, and sometimes, I almost want to, start to get sucked back into like gender thinking, and it's a process for me. And that's okay. Like, yeah, that's really honest. That's really real. And I appreciate that. And I think that speaking, the more you can talk it and say it out loud, it's like, shame the devil, like whatever thrives in the darkness dies in the light. Banish the darkness with the light, bring things to light, expose it, and then it's so much easier to try to combat it that way, rather than pretending like you're perfectly good to go and everything's good and you don't need any more help, and now you can be a leading. That's why Jen Speck is so irresponsible. Jen Speck is constantly platforming people like that Laura the funk god lady, who honestly is a degenerate. She's a degenerate. I don't know what else to say. She's a sexual degenerate. I think she's like riddled. She even talks about like, she talked about in a interview with Stella about like a history of smoking crack, I think. And I was like, and that I can see it. She comes off to me as like an addict and a very addict behavior. And that's not to say that she's a horrible person, but we need her sitting on panels talking about, detransition, right? Unless it's like being moderated heavily, with somebody who can help filter what we're hearing. And she's just directly speaking about like, the surgery that she had and who gave it to her and stuff like that, right? Like that sort of thing.
I'll talk you out of it. So.
This is so sad, the way he treats Eva.
My application should be submitted. I let them know, then the official process begins. It's a 90-day process with their professional, with their assessment team. So I don't know what it looks like. I don't know who the doctors are or psychiatrists. So it starts. It's just a 90-day process.
Good says never compare alcohol addiction to this. Alcohol is the worst drug out of them all. I don't disagree with you. I frequently say how I think alcohol addiction is the worst drug of them all. But to say never compare what's going on here, of course they're similar. The same way that people transfer addictions all the time. A lot of people get clean off of heroin and then they become hardcore alcoholics down the line. You see that a lot. People transition addictions all the time. Addiction manifests in many ways all the time. And I always talk about how Buck Angel, for example, to me, she is very much in an active addiction. It's just right now her addiction is around, testosterone and, testosterone and gender drugs, right? And she has very addiction behavior. The pornography, the, the hypersexuality, the attention, the sort of like pseudo celebrity stuff. And I do think that there's like some good parts of her, and I am rooting for her. I'm rooting for any woman, right? I'm rooting for any woman to get better, and good men to get better, good men who are just going through a tough time to get better. Some of these AGPs are awful, but it's like there are some that I would like to see get healthy. I want to see anybody get healthy because it's better for society to see sick people get healthy, right? But like, no, I see her very rooted in addiction, and if she could identify that and actually get help for it, I think that if we did apply our addiction strategies, our strategies for combating addiction, which are already so in need of, better options, I think that we could actually start to make some progress with this. And I think that we absolutely need like an AA, an Alcoholics Anonymous, for detransitioners, a very similar program, right? It's like, addicts helping addicts, alcoholics helping alcoholics, genderists helping, ex-genderists helping ex-genderists. Detransitioners are in the best position to help other detransitioners when they are healed, right? And it's also the idea that like, alcoholics and addicts always acknowledge, that's what the reason why they stand up and say like, hi, my name is Brittany and I'm an alcoholic, right? The reason why you have to say hi, your name, and you say I'm an addict or I'm an alcoholic. And I've gone to meetings with friends before. I've helped friends through addiction. That's why I have like intimate knowledge of how these meetings work. And, the reason why they say that is because that's you acknowledging before yourself and before God that addiction is something that lasts for life. You put it in dormancy. You put it in recovery, right? That's why they always say, I'm working my recovery. Because you never say I'm recovered. You'll never hear like somebody who really understands like addiction recovery and AA or NA say I'm a recovered alcoholic, I'm a recovered addict. If they're following like the 12 steps, is because the idea is that it's a daily practice. You're practicing recovery, right? You're in a process of recovery, which, even somebody 30 years down the line will stand up and say, hi, my name is, like Garrett and I'm a alcoholic. Even if he has 30 years clean, because once you've made those changes to your brain, it doesn't matter. You can always slip back. And they always say I'm one drink away to losing it all. I'm one drink away from being a full-blown alcoholic again. That's all it could take from me. It is one more shot of heroin, one more hit of crack, right? One more, drink. And that's why I think, with transition and detransitioners, and we even see, with Isaac Uncooked, it's not enough to just detransition. Oh, they're good to go. No, it's something you're going to have to practice for the rest of your life.
Process. And then whatever after that, then the date could be picked. I can either opt out at any given time.
Exactly. So Susie Glucksman says, which is another reason letting any autogynephile into gender critical space is wrong. They're in active addiction. Absolutely. And it's exactly why letting any true trans person into gender critical spaces and to be a voice for gender critical spaces is wrong, because they are in active addiction. If they are still consider themselves trans at any level, they are still active in their addiction. It's just like a functioning alcoholic running an AA meeting. I still drink, but I keep it under control now. And here's how I'm going to teach you how to drink responsibly. No, when you're an addict, there is no such thing as drinking responsibly. There's no such thing as shooting heroin responsibly. You might be able to kind of keep it under control for a little bit, but you're still doing damage, and it's only a matter of time before it all falls apart. Okay? And that's the most insidious thing about alcohol, is that you can technically function for years and years and years and years and years while being a problem drinker. And then by the time it's like, at least like with heroin, I feel like you go from 0 to 100 really fast. It's like people get on heroin and their life goes downhill quickly. And there's like, no one has a tolerance for heroin. The second you hear that somebody's like on heroin or a hard drug, you're like, oh my God, go get help. But for people with alcohol, like who are alcoholics, it's like, oh, it's okay. He just drinks sometimes. He drinks, maybe he drinks a little bit too much. He'll get it under control. And oh, he's young, or oh, he's just blowing off steam. He works hard. And I saw that with my best friend's mom. Functional alcoholic for years and years and years, a highly, highly well-educated woman, brilliant, built a brilliant business, had 4 beautiful children with her husband, who was like a Harvard business grad. She went to Duke University, accomplished a lot in her life, but is to the point where she's unrecognizable now. Her addiction is so severe, and unfortunately, when you've been drinking for that long and that much, you actually have so much brain damage and liver damage that it's almost impossible to reverse course at a certain point. That's why I think the person is right in that alcohol is one of the most dangerous and insidious. And alcohol is toxic to every organ system in your body. Yeah, neuropathy. Yeah. Good says you don't want neuropathy. It sucks. And it's like, you could take somebody who took heroin every day for 10 years versus somebody who drank alcohol heavily every day for 10 years. And as long as the person who was ingesting heroin wasn't using like bad needle hygiene or wasn't, all these like comorbid things that make them lose their health is like perfect. Because again, our bodies have natural opiate receptors. We're actually made to receive opiates, right? In certain quantities. And what happens, the addiction is when you create an overgrowth of opiate receptors. And that's why it hurts to stop taking those opiates, because you have so many opiate receptors that you grew to digest, to metabolize all the opiates that you're putting in your system, that they're all screaming, right? When you don't use. But overall, opiates are actually not very hard on your body. That's why they're actually technically not a teratogen. There's issues about how it's ingested and the lifestyle that it creates with the addiction and the obsession and stuff like that. But even babies who are born addicted to opiates don't have, in many cases, unless they were using other drugs, the long-term consequences. Whereas alcohol is teratogenic is one of the biggest teratogens, which means it disrupts like the normal development of babies, and it's toxic to every single organ system in the body, right? It's absolutely a poison, yet it's so normalized. That's why so many people are just, no one recognizes that they're actually in addiction and in severe alcoholism and needing help, because it's just like, oh no, it's cool, leave him alone, he knows what he's doing. And it's usually not before it's too late until people realize that the drinking is actually a serious problem. Liver cirrhosis is a horrible way. One of my best friend's mom passed away a few years ago from alcohol. And she said that by the time she found her, she said that like her stepdad wasn't taking care of her mom and wasn't watching over her health. And she said she went to go visit her mom, and she said she was literally green. Her liver was so seriously shut down, and that there were just toxins building up. She said her eyes were like brown and her like skin was green. She said she rushed her to the hospital, and she, passed away, I think, a week or two or whatever it was later from liver cirrhosis. She was like, it was the scariest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And she was becoming like incoherent because it's a toxin. All the toxins build up in your body because your liver is supposed to be able to process toxins out. When it doesn't function, it all builds up. And you become, the neuropathy, you start not being able to think straight. She said that she thought there were bugs everywhere and stuff. She was getting like delusions. So sad.
There's no pressure. Nobody's pressuring me. This is just me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
And then it's like so sad that, that I'm like thinking of Eva. She's witnessing one of her friends.
You don't care.
I'll get to talk to you.
I know.
I'll talk you out of it. So.
But like, even with my family, I'm like, this is my decision. There's like you just witness and let's make memories, you know?
Sorry, we'll get off this and get back on it. But Rebecca Van Tassel says SSRIs, which are serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or no, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And they work by basically a depressed person's brain. Like, okay, so whenever you're happy, your body will release serotonin. Your brain will release serotonin. And then your brain, you know, basically takes it back up, sucks it back up, right? Because you don't want to just sit, you know, with too much serotonin. That has its own problems. A depressed brain sucks the serotonin up too long. Too quickly. It doesn't give the brain enough time to really like feel and enjoy the serotonin. So the way that an SSRI works, it's a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. It stops the brain from sucking up the serotonin too quickly. It allows it to linger a little bit. But yeah, there's a lot of issues with that. Like she said, SSRIs, hold on. Rebecca Van Tassel says SSRI, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors for depression, are hard to get off. I'm trying with mine. It's Pfizer. They've been sued successfully for how bad the withdrawal is. I am so glad. Somebody like accused me on Twitter of like, they said that I fake being happy because I like shared like a story about my kids in the snow. And I was like, I'm really thankful for my family. Like, you know, I'm happy with my life. And they got mad. They're like, I'm unfollowing. I'm so sick of these my life is happy and perfect all the time posts. I can't take it anymore. And he's like, and by the way, your husband or boyfriend or whatever seems miserable when he's with you. I was like, bro, what? I was like, calm down. And it was like, no, my life hasn't always been perfect. It's like actually the opposite. I've had to walk through hell to get to where I am. Of course, I've had very dark times in my life. But no, I actually, and then they like accused me of like, you know, like he was like, mark my words, or he or she was like, mark my words. This a slightly twisted female person probably is on like 10 different psychiatric medications for depression, bipolar disorder, and has to sit there and fake having a happy, perfect life to like, you know, try to pretend like she's something she's not. And I was like, bro, what? And I was like, no, first of all, I've never been on psychiatric medication ever in my life. And there was one time they did actually try to prescribe it to me. I think like close to like 15 years ago now. And I was going through like a tough time. And I could not. I think it was because I learned that you could gain weight. And I was like real, you know, just like obsessive about like working out and stuff. I was like, yeah, hell to the nizal. And also I like couldn't remember to take it every day. And I was like, I feel like this is not a good idea to like not be consistent with this. And I'm so glad that I didn't get stuck on it because I've heard the same thing. And trying to get off of psychiatric medications is so dangerous. And they overprescribe them to people who like go to prison, or a lot of kids in the foster care system are heavily medicated. And yeah, and then going cold turkey can cause people to like become psychotic. It's just really scary. Anyway, all right, let's get back to Eva and this guy who seems to have a lot of like coercive control. And she just seems to be in a position of like almost being narcissistically abused by this guy. My opinion, but you know, let's hear some more.
I want to make memories.
You said long, boring life. Do you feel like you don't have anything to contribute beyond genetic reproduction? Is there...
No, I would say if I had in Canada's woke culture, good Lord, you see how we're still disenfranchised.
Canada's woke culture. Meanwhile, this guy is totally woke. It's like, I hate these people who just know that right now it's the trendy thing to do to be anti-woke, which is why they're going gender critical. And again, Christina Goki said it, and I've said this way, way back in the day, right? And she said it the other day, and she's absolutely right. Yay, Kai Decadence! Me and Kai Decadence are going live tomorrow. I'm going to have him on the channel tomorrow, and that is like a so long overdue. So definitely check in tomorrow. Really looking forward to that. But Christina Goki, was saying that like the next big thing for these men to colonize is being a TERF, right? We talked about this yesterday. That's the next like big gender affirmation thing. You know, if they can get in with the TERFs, then they're really a special woman. You know, they're really then it's like, oh, I'm not just a trans woman. I'm not just doing the whole queer theory with all the other, you know, trans identifying people who are men. You know, I have transitioned so successfully that I'm being accepted by, you know, even the TERFs. And that's kind of like why I think like Blair White gets so self-righteous. And anybody, like, it's like a lot of these dudes will sit there and be like, oh, you know, I could have such a bigger platform if I decided to go along with the gender narrative. And no, because right now it's becoming popular to be like gender critical to a certain extent, right? It's like the counterculture, like, you know, the kind of like ahead of the curve thing. You know, now more people are waking up to that, like, you know, being anti-woke is starting to have its own niche following. And that's all that this is. Like, this guy's pretending, oh, he can't stand the Canadian woke culture, yet he is like, just listen. He's totally woke, totally falls back on identity politics for no reason, whines that the government should give him more stuff, whines that other people should give him stuff for free. And like, there's no sense of personal responsibility. Like, he's totally this like cultural Marxist, right? And it's like, grow up. This like extended adolescence.
Like, as First Nations people, unless we tell, you know, the line.
Oh, let's hear it from the beginning. Sorry, I keep talking.
I want to make memories.
You said long, boring life. Do you feel like you don't have anything to contribute beyond genetic reproduction? Is there...
No, I would say if I had in Canada's woke culture, good Lord, you see how we're still disenfranchised. Like, as First Nations people, unless we tell, you know, the line. And plus, I don't want to get old. Who wants to get old? I'm going to be 35 this year. And good Lord, I'm turning, like, my face is going to be 25 again. Like it has been for the last 10 years.
You don't look...
Okay, his skin is like okay, but he's 35, and I'm sorry, like, I'm not gonna get petty. You don't, when you see him without like his filters and stuff, yeah, you see like a straight up picture of him. No. So you don't look 25. Like, there's a lot going on down here. Whatever. At 35, I don't want to get old. It's like, how dare you? I hate, it's like, how dare you? One of the greatest things has been getting old for me. Okay, I'm turning 36 in a few days here. My birthday is on the 29th. And, you know, I had this moment of being like, damn, it's crazy. At the same time, as I've gotten older, it's been one of the most precious gifts. I have a voice like never before. I know myself like I never did in the past. I know how to advocate for myself. I'm more content than I've ever been in my body and in my life. I've established things now. I own things. I'm in control of things in my life and in control of my world. I have more perspective on issues that used to, you know, I used to fret about and get obsessive about. I know how to like speak up for myself. It's like, I love this, right? I love being around older women. I'm at a point in my life where it's like, I don't, forget the 20-something-year-olds. Give me women in their 50s, give me like 55 and up women. And some of the best things that I've loved about being a part of this movement is having the chance to build friendships with older women. It has been some of like just the best thing for me. And again, as somebody who like didn't have my mom just wasn't able to really always be the sort of like older, mature, role model that I really had always kind of wanted and sometimes needed. But I've been able to find that, and again, I don't want to put her down, but like I've been able to really find that in a lot of these like brilliant older women who can like show me a blueprint for just how to like be my greatest self in the world. Oh God, I love it. It's like Jennifer Thomas is like probably my best friend in all of this and has quickly become one of my best friends, period. Right. And I love spending time with her. And she's so the epitome of like who everyone should, like of getting to a certain age and showing how like growing in age is such a gift. You grow in yourself and you become more and better, and it gets better. It really does. And like we have so much fun and she has so much fun and like, yeah, to say something like that is so, and like Eva's like giggling along.
35.
I know. It's for the magic. Right? Magic.
What's the difference between accessing MAiDs and just doing it yourself? Is there a distinction?
One is just suicide.
Yeah.
Suicide without dignity, and the other one is with the dignity. And it could be performed by nurses injecting you. So, like, you're not.
Well, and he contradicts himself a lot. He said that it's not, SUICIDE to do the assisted self-deletion, but like of course it is. And like how is it with dignity? I mean, like yeah, I guess you don't have to like, blow yourself apart, but come on. This really, like, the whole MAiD thing is really for people who are in like end stages of like totally debilitating disease and are in so much pain they can't even, like, where there's just no quality of life, right? That's what this program is really supposed to be. Not some like entitled brat to go and like who was LARPed as women and who, this like abuser guy to go and create a new grift. And he's like collecting money as like a GoFundMe and stuff. This is a grift. That's not what this was for. This is for people who are really, really suffering. This is about you getting attention. And it's like, shame on you. And shame on Eva. Shame on Eva and anybody who like sits there and coddles this whole duo. Ew.
Building a bed. You could just allow them to administer the treatment. Then you go to the land of whatever.
Huh.
See, and I believe in the afterlife, so I'm like, I want to see everything at once.
Yeah. Well, I'm confused about the word dignity. What's more dignified, using a doctor rather than?
Well, because like you get to like drift off into.
Honestly, though, I will say, like, however you think about Benjamin Boyce, he literally, I didn't even remember like what he had said there. He literally says everything that I think. Like, he has definitely challenged this guy with pretty much every single thing that I also was thinking. So I am actually glad to hear him pushing back, and he's doing it, in like a respectful, classy way, but he's definitely pushing back, and I do appreciate that at least.
Sleep. Yeah. So instead of like harming yourself by cutting yourself or hanging yourself, like, and then having somebody find your body, like, that's very.
Yeah, what was it? Tartaria Frequency says Eva is smirking and laughing the whole time because she knows it's BS. That's why they both are kind of like giggling and like they both know it's a grift. And Eva, I think the way that Eva justifies it to herself is, how she's able to like, the cognitive dissonance of such like a scumbag narrative they're trying to peddle. This is really it really is, Eva, and if you're listening, this is a scumbag move that you and your little pal are doing. It's gross. It's so beyond irresponsible. I don't even like know. I can't even fully wrap my mind around it. And I'm sure that you've had moments of like cognitive dissonance. And I imagine that the only way that she's able to justify this to herself and not look at herself with total disgust for joining in on this is because she thinks, oh, it's for the greater good, because it sends the message that that these surgeries are so horrible and this is what it's forcing people to do. But when it's fake like this, it's everyone's trying to see like this is just an attention grabbing grift. It's just an attention grabbing grift, and it's like shame on both of you. You know, this is, and it's like you're going along with it because it's bolstering your careers. You're getting all, you know, you're tag teaming with your friend. He uses you, you know, because he needs to have somebody on a leash. You know, I really, Eva's the pet. You know, we call him the pet, Troon. Eva's the pet, to be clear. Eva's the one who's the pet. And, you know, but she ends up having to be the handler and whatever. And it's like, so he's got his pet turf, who he gets to control and emotionally manipulate. And then, you know, she gets, I guess, benefits because she's adjacent to this whole weird story that is driving publicity to the both of them. And they're getting called in for, you know, interviews, and they're having news stories written about them. And it's like, come on. What like a cheap, low stunt.
Traumatic for the people that are finding her body.
Yeah, it is.
So at least you're in a safe environment and you get to go on your terms. And I think my last breath is going to say, at least I wasn't trans.
So
Are you crying? Don't you cry.
I'm remembering something that happened 3 years ago. Just a terrible...
Look at him. Look at the way he smiled and smirked when she starts crying. And this is the moment when I actually realized, like, that Eva maybe is, like, genuinely, like, a compassionate person and is, like, just being abused by all of this. Because what are you doing to her? This guy doesn't care about her. It's all a game. You see, like, that sort of, like, that delight, how delighted he looked when she started crying. Look at the little smirk. It's like the little duper's delight. Like, look at the control I have. Look how much she loves me. Ooh, look how much I can, you know, like get her to cry and be upset. And look how much my story affects her. Look at it. I love it. You know, he's getting off on it. Look at this. And she's really crying. Like I saw, she literally starts to break down. Like, you know, I don't think Eva's perfect at all. But like, you know, I think that she does have like some genuine qualities. And, you know, this probably is hurtful and confusing to her. And she's probably just scared that, you know, even if she does think that he's kind of grifting or whatever, and she knows she's grifting a little bit, I'm sure there is still a part of her, again, like ASlightlyTwistedXX said, you know, that this is a credible threat. He's really gone through with hurting himself before. And I'm sure he constantly, you know, lays the smackdown on her about how much this is upsetting, you know, how much pain he's in and how depressed he is. And she's probably terrified that, you know, to even bring up like, hey, are you real? Is this really real? Like, she has to take it as a serious, credible threat at all times. She's probably terrified about how to deal with it and has to feel like she's constantly handling him with kitten gloves and having to coddle him and be there for him. They probably have so many, like, we're going to have our last, you know, big hurrah. We're going to go on our last special thing. And they're constantly living in the state of like, this could be our last day together. That is an exhausting, draining, unhealthy state to keep somebody in. It's like I had a friend who we all watched die of cancer, this girl that I went to high school with, and it was terrifying because it's the same cancer that I had. It's part of the reason why I was like so terrified when I got my diagnosis, because I literally had just watched one of my friends from high school, like almost 8 years prior, die practically in real time on social media from the same exact type of cancer. And she was diagnosed when she was just gotten engaged. She had just gotten engaged. And then had this weird bleeding, and then was diagnosed, and except her cancer was somewhere else. It was the same type, but hers was cervical cancer. And she was like, I'm going to beat it. we got this. And she had like hashtag team bam it, you know, because like I guess her little baby niece was like, you're gonna bam it, meaning like you're gonna like beat this. And she was blogging about it, you know, constantly. And we're like, you're young. And like, it was this whole, like, she was like this beautiful cheerleader, like one of the, like the super popular girls that we went to high school with, went to a great college, had this gorgeous boyfriend who proposed to her after college. Oh my God, it is horrific. Like literally, like she had a twin sister. She had a twin sister. Both of them were like super popular. Oh my God, got engaged, found out she had cancer, but you know, her doctor's like, you're young. Same thing they said to me. You're young. We think that, you know, we just got to be aggressive about this. We think that, thank God, you know, youth is on your side. We have a lot of treatments that we can explore and we can overcome this. And I know for a fact she fully believed that she was going to overcome this. And it looked like she was. We were all like, no, you got this. You got this. Like cancer treatment is so different these days. Like, totally have this. She was on Say Yes to the Dress. Anybody, that TLC show, they like did a special, you know, thing on her, and she was going through chemo and lost all of her hair. And then it started to like get not so good. And she still was planning her wedding. And then on her wedding day, oh God. And her husband is like a saint. He really is. He like treated her like such a princess that whole time. You know, and I think there was that part of it is like, just in case, I'm going to make this like the best, you know, year of your life. And they like took a honeymoon together early, and he like made sure they like, and her whole family rallied around her and like picked out her dress, and she did all this stuff and like was whatever, all these beautiful plans. And it's like that feeling of like, we could lose her. We want to make sure that this time is like meaningful and precious, because well, at least we have a forewarning knowing that like this could gets, you know, serious. And they ended up, you know, they ended up losing her 3 weeks after her wedding. And her wedding was so sad because it was like she had lost all of her hair. They had to take, when you take lymph nodes out, the point of lymph nodes is they drain fluid from one part of your body to another. So they had to remove lymph nodes out of her groin, and it made her one leg super swell up. So it was like so swollen with fluid. It was like crazy. And then she had like a skinny other leg. So she had to like have like a walker and stuff. It was so hard to see her like that. Because like I said, she was this like beautiful, super popular cheerleader that everyone loved, that everyone was like, you know, jealous of. It was like one of those girls that you knew was going to go on and have this like perfect life and like perfect boyfriend. And it was like so hard seeing her in such like a vulnerable like state like that. And even then we thought like, no, it's okay. You're going to make a comeback. And then when we, like, I heard the news that she had passed away in her sleep, it was like, bro, what? Like that wasn't how it was supposed to happen, you know? And so it's like, again, that family and like her husband, who such a good guy, like I'm just grateful that they did everything, like took her on a honeymoon, had all these really special like last moments together, because that was real. So I'm sure Eva's sitting here doing all that stuff with him, being like, we're going to have these special last moments and stuff, knowing that this is all a game to him. You're just draining people of their emotional resources, draining people of, you know, abusing the fact that they love you. Like there's just a very narcissistic, really pathological, sort of like abusive treatment of somebody.
Story, I don't want to say it, but
Did that happen to you?
Yeah, someone said it's keeping an emotional hostage. This isn't friendship. She's absolutely held emotional hostage, because if she tries to cut it off, he could go hurt himself. If she tries to say enough or lay some boundaries down, he's so unstable. He doesn't, you know, she doesn't want to lose him, and it is vicious. And also he expects her to call her, even though he knows that she's a gender critical feminist, he still expects her and requires her to call him she, her, and to turn the other way while he uses the women's bathroom, right? And so it's like, again, it's like, oh, but, you know, it's my friend and I want to show respect to him, or, you know, to her. But clearly he doesn't respect you and the fact that you're a woman, and that by doing that, he's degrading you as a woman. He's degrading you in language. He's degrading you by wearing, what you are as some kind of a costume so that he can pick up men. Ew.
Oh, a 15-year-old.
Hold on. Let's just watch that whole. Look at her get emotional, and she's trying not to.
Connect and let's make memories. I want to make memories.
You said long, boring life. Do you feel like you don't have anything to contribute beyond genetic reproduction? Is there...
No, I would say if I had in Canada's woke culture, good Lord, you see how we're still disenfranchised, like as First Nations people, unless we toe, the line. And plus, I don't want to get old. Who wants to get old? I'm going to be 35 this year. And good Lord, I'm turning, my face is going to be 25 again, like it has been for the last 10 years.
You don't look 35.
I know. It's because of magic. Right? It's magic.
What's the difference between accessing MAiDs and just doing it yourself? Is there a distinction?
One is just suicide.
Yeah.
Suicide without dignity, and the other one is with dignity. And it could be performed by nurses injecting you. So, you're not holding a button. You could just allow them to administer the treatment. Then you go to the land of whatever.
Huh.
See, and I believe in the afterlife, so I'm I want to see everything at once.
Yeah. Well, I'm confused about the word dignity. What's more dignified using a
Do you hear him? He said, I don't believe in the afterlife, so I want to see everything at once. So exactly, I didn't even catch that before. Exactly what I said. I know that this is it for me. After that, it's just all cold and dark. So we need to get, do it all up. Eva's probably spending money to give him experiences. And he's I want to have memories. This isn't somebody who's been diagnosed with a non-survivable, terminal illness. This is somebody who's just doesn't take your feelings seriously, Eva. And you're probably spending money, taking time off of work, taking time away from your fiance or your wife, taking time away from your life and your family because you're oh, this might be my last time with her. Oh my God. Well, how abusive. I don't believe in an afterlife, so I want to do it all now. I want to make memories. Eva's sitting here crying, trying to hold back, fight back tears, and you giggle when she starts crying. Does anybody, and I'm sorry, Anna Slats, hello? Do you not see this? Have you listened to this? Have you really thought about it critically? If you love Eva, I would really, really, really I don't know, look at this stuff and consider some kind of an intervention. If I loved Eva, I would for sure as fuck be planning an intervention to get her away from this creep.
Doctor rather than
well, cause you get to drift off into sleep.
Yeah.
So instead of harming yourself by cutting yourself or hanging yourself, and then having somebody find your body, that's very traumatic for the people that are finding your body.
Yeah, it is.
So at least you're in a safe environment and you get to go on your terms. And I think my last breath is going to say, at least I wasn't trans.
My last breath is going to say, at least I wasn't trans. It's all a big joke. It's all a big joke. And she's sitting here crying. And it's again, this is who these men are. This is what they do. This is what they do. They glom onto women and use them as emotional mules. And they manipulate them, and they use trauma and pain and manipulation to, like the commenter said, keep them emotionally hostage. She's being held hostage by this guy. Look at his face. Yeah, look at his face. Exactly. She's there crying. It's all a game. And my last breath was gonna say, at least I wasn't trans. Well, why do you call yourself a trans woman or a transsexual woman? You do realize that trans is shorthand for transsexual or transgender, right? You knew that, and I know you're trying to separate yourself out from the transgenders as if it's different. No, it's not, bro. You have a gender identity. It makes you so super special. Well, at least I wasn't trans. Like, come on, Kermit. Tighten up.
For finding your body.
Yeah, it is.
So at least you're in a safe environment and you get to go on your terms. And I think my last breath is going to say, at least I wasn't trans.
So
Are you crying? Don't you cry.
I'm remembering something that happened 3 years ago.
Look how gleeful he is. Oh, I'm sorry. We don't watch it so much. Can I slow it down? Are you crying? Don't you cry? No, don't cry. Hold on. Can we get a playback speed? Yeah, we can make it slow. Don't you cry now. Hold on. Come on, Eva. But also you tighten up a little bit. If you can't see this for what it is, stop it. And I know that Anna Slat's being like, oh, Eva has a much more personal knowledge of what's going on with him than just about anyone else. Yeah, because she's captive. He's got her in a chokehold with this crap. Because go cut her loose, for fuck's sake. Blah, 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 blah. That's my last dying words. And she's like, come on, bro. Watch his face. I slowed it down. Watch both of them.
At least you're in a safe environment. You get to go on your terms.
Hold on.
Say, at least I wasn't trans.
Look at the glee. It's like, is it Duper's? But also, am I giving Eva too much credit? Is this Duper's delight on both of their parts? Are they both in on this grift? I'm not surely 100% sure either way. I do think that Eva's definitely at least being somewhat manipulated by this guy, but I also think that there's some Duper's delight on her part too. Look at them both. They're kind of like winking at each other. And it's come on, Eva, you're either super dumb, I feel like it's both. I feel like in some respect, Eva knows that she's profiting by peddling this story, and she's, by being adjacent to it, she's getting attention. That's why she makes sure to come on every single interview and stuff, But then I also do think, to a certain extent, again, just like ASlightlyTwistedXX said, it's a credible threat from somebody who has gone through elaborate lengths to self-harm in the past. So there's not a reason, that she does have some reason to believe that he could follow through, and he seems very abrasive. This man seems very abrasive with this sort of stuff, and also shameless with it to the lengths that he doesn't look young. He doesn't look 25. Come on, bro. Come on, sir. And you have a filter on and you don't look 25, It's like there. I think it's both, right? And I don't. You guys tell me what you think. I don't know if like I'm just not sure on to what extent Eva is in on it. I do think she's in on it to some extent, but I also do think that there is like, valid concerns that she has. And I think, maybe part of her is like, well, he might not, but just in case. And either way, she's in a chokehold. He's definitely the one in control. Make no mistake. And they frame him as the vulnerable one, and she's the strong one who's got to shield him, and she's the one protective of him. Make no mistake, though, he's the one in charge. He's the controlling one. He's the one with the power in this whole dynamic, and they pretend as like she's the one who is the actually powerful one, and she's got to protect him, and she's like, has to be like, she feels protective of him because she loves him, and he's very vulnerable. No, he's not. Get the fuck out of here.
Are you crying? Don't you cry.
Look at him smiling.
I'm remembering something happened 3 years ago. Just a terrible story.
Look at him. Look at him. Look at his look at him. She's gonna sit here and talk about like a horrible trauma that she went through with like look at Benjamin. I think Benjamin is like, bro, where the fuck are we? I do think that he's like, because all of the questions he's asked exactly is like what I'm thinking. So I think he's also just like, wow, this is twisted. This is twisted. It's like you can love him or hate him. I do think that he's like catching on to how twisted all of this is. Yeah, look at him. He's like, the fuck? Like, how do we get here? And the thing is, for everybody who, I clearly for the majority of the stream has framed Eva as a victim to the extent that I think she is. But I also, I don't believe over infantilizing grown adults. She's obviously intelligent enough that she's this like writer. She's a professional. She's an independent adult. She's a married adult woman in her, she's a middle-aged, mid-30s woman. So I don't want to over infantilize her and pretend like she just has no agency over her life. He's not holding her at gunpoint. I do think that it's with these sort of codependent relationships, there is culpability on both sides. Obviously, the majority of the culpability lies with this guy, but like she has some culpability. Like let's not pretend that like these adults don't have some role in how they got themselves here. But he's dangerous. This guy is dangerous, and anybody who loves her would get her away from him now.
Don't want to say it, but
What happened to you?
a 15-year-old that I know that her parents found her. The anniversary just was a few days ago, so
I know it's hard, especially to go that way. And like even that's what happened last summer with my cousin. She committed suicide after she was gang raped. Like that was intense, and then now her family, my cousin.
Poor Eva. Now, see, these are the moments where I actually do start to feel really sorry for Eva. Like, 'cause I believe that story that she just said, that's where you just saw some real emotion from her. Because I do right now. She just told a story about an actual, someone who took their life, and I think for a minute, all of a sudden, she just got hit with a bunch of emotion from that real experience. And that's probably the fact that she has experience with people taking her life who are close to her, and that she has that trauma makes her vulnerable, and especially vulnerable and susceptible to being manipulated by this guy and his threats, because she's lost somebody before. It's actually happened. She's lived through, and I'm sure she runs through her mind, what could I have done differently? What red flags were there? And I'm sure her and her family and the other loved ones of this person have probably laid awake countless nights being like, what could I have done differently? What red flags were there? What did I miss? You know, was that one time that he said that one thing? Was that him reaching out for help and I missed it? You beat yourself up over this sort of stuff. I missed it. I could have done something. I could have called somebody. And so here is her chance. Here's Eva's chance. Sorry, my back is like all I need a massage so bad. I'm like, that's why I'm all twitchy. Here's Eva's chance to almost make up for what I'm sure she's beaten herself up over time and time again. Here she's saying, not again, not today. I'm not letting this, you know, I'm going to be there for him all the way down to the end. I'm riding through this thing, you know, come what may, because I am not going to, you know, let this something slip through the cracks again, right? So it's like, you know, she was an easy target for that reason. Stephanie Lake says, why are women so scared of calling these dudes out? Dudes out? Is this when, well, duds or dudes, either way is correct. Is this when female socialization gets the better of us? Yeah, pretty much. And again, and it's like, this is why it's so important that we don't get too black and white thinking, because we can acknowledge that Eva might be I don't know her, so she might be a total piece of shit. She might be Mother Teresa, right? She is wrong in this. She is wrong in this. And I'm sure there are complex reasons as to why she's wrong. Her friends seem to love her. So I believe that she probably is a loving and kind person, a likable person, right? And you know, she probably is a good friend. Clearly, you know, he was able to glom on, figure that out and glom the hell onto it. You know, so it's like we need to not see calling people out as us like hating them, and you know, we've got to really try to like insulate ourselves from that. It's like the whole idea that like if you're calling out a gender ideologue doesn't mean you hate trans people. Calling out trans ideology is not the same thing as being transphobic, right? Calling out bad behavior and unhinged behavior from some of our own people is not hating them. It's not tantamount to hating them or wanting to see their, you know, lives ruined. Do I think she should step down for a little while from the platform that she has to speak for women? Do I think she should? Yeah. Do I think she should be going and getting paid to speak on gender critical women's panels? No. Not right now. Maybe one day. Not now. When she's in this like active, weird Stockholm syndrome situation. I don't think she's in any position to be speaking on anything if she's actively enabling this man. You know, she can't even, you know, navigate out of this guy, let alone teach people how to navigate away from gender ideology as a whole. This is why gender ideology is so difficult to get rid of and to solve. Because it's right here, we're seeing in real time how people get sucked into these abusive men, these narcissistic men, and what they do to people and the effect that they have on people. And this is how we've gotten here, because of men like this who are so pathological and so good at manipulating people. Yeah, the emotional manipulation, Kai, exactly. And that we've literally reorganized society to sit there and accommodate these men and their wants. They conflated their needs with their wants and got us to believe it. She is in no position right now to be any kind of a voice for anything until she gets some real help and gets away from this guy.
Are seeking justice for her, and the justice system is just so flawed.
Listen to that too.
Intense.
Now you have this I'm sorry, this scumbag who's talking about he's a family member who ended their life, and he's now talking about the family's pain and how the family is trying to get justice from the justice system for what happened. I guess whatever, something slipped through the cracks or whatever, right? And it's like, so you have seen people go through this, that you've seen the fallout of families having to cope with and pick up the pieces after somebody makes a decision like this. And it's, you're a clusterfuck, sir. With all due respect, which is very little, frankly. And you've seen what families go through, and it's still all a game. Listen to that again real quick. I'm going to stop interrupting it all the time. It's just so hard.
With my cousin,
And listen to what he talks about my cousin.
The anniversary just was a few days ago, so.
Poor Eva.
I know it's hard.
I know it's hard. As you're sitting there talking about how you're definitely, come on.
For hanging yourself, like, and then having somebody find your body. Like, that's very traumatic for the people that are finding your body.
Yeah, it is.
So at least you're in a safe environment and you get to go on your terms. And I think my last breath is going to say, at least I wasn't trans.
So is there?
Are you crying? Don't you cry.
I'm remembering something that happened 3 years ago. Just a terrible story. I don't want to say it, but
Did it happen to you?
oh, a 15-year-old that I know that her parents found her. The anniversary just was a few days ago, so.
I know it's hard, especially to go that way. And like even, well, that's what happened last summer with my cousin. She committed suicide after she was gang raped. Like, that was intense. And then now her family, my cousins, are seeking justice for her. And the justice system's just so flawed. It's just intense. And then I wish there was just more resources for all. Even mental health, it's mostly outpatient. You see a psychologist, not even a psychiatrist. So how do you get on medication? How do you get on psychiatric medication without follow-ups?
Is there dignity in trying to fix the system rather than giving up with dignity?
Where do we even begin to try to fix a system when the system's captured?
Well, you don't know for how long it'll be captured. And
you hear what he's saying? He's like, well, what about trying to fix it or be a resource? You know, actually being like a noble, decent person. If you're seeing that there's a deficit, you're not helping anybody by doing what you're doing. Why not taking all this time that you're taking to grift this deplorable, selfish story that you've concocted and create resources, create a support group for other detransitioners, track them down, you know, reach out to them, create a YouTube channel, platform them and their stories, have conversations. You know, create so all the money that you're raising for yourself because you're selfish and gross. Why don't you raise that money for to help change these things that you've identified as being flaws? Why does the government need to do everything for you? Why the government's not doing it? The government hasn't done it, so I guess there's nothing we can do. I don't know. The government needs to change. Then you be the change. You don't live in communist China. Go start an organization. Go start a 501c3 or whatever the equivalent is in Canada. Come up with something. Problem solve. Do something. You're saying, your life is going to be so boring. Create something. Or was that would be too much to have to think of other people, right? It doesn't center Lois.
If more and more people check out, then there's less people resisting it. If you see a problem, why not dedicate yourself to solving that, no matter how unlikely or improbable that solution is? Is there not dignity in dedicating your life to fixing the fucked up world?
Well, that's what I've been doing for the last since Wait, okay, that's 6, 5. It's for the last 5 years since 2016. Wait, that doesn't make sense. 7 years. Somebody do the math. It's 7 years, right? 7 years.
16, 4 plus 2 plus 1. So 7, I guess.
7.
Something
Yeah,
like that.
7 years. I've been an advocate on change, on social change, and yet I forget the limitations that the color of my skin has.
Oh, here we
What
go.
limitation?
Here we go. He makes a bunch of like, again, oh, he's anti-woke, but then he makes some weird claims that he can't even explain about how the color of his skin keeps him from, I'm not sure exactly. And even Benjamin Boyce like, what? This is why I called it out. He falls back on identity politics for no reason. So it's not racist to call that out. It's bullshit and it's lame and people are getting tired of it. These weird baseless claims. And also, just as a quick intermission, if you haven't already, please like the stream. It does me a lot of help and it helps just please like the stream. Thank you. And then also, if you want to support the channel, my Venmo is at a slightly twisted female at gmail.com. And my Cash App is at ASlightlyTwistedXX. But definitely like the stream. Thank you. And subscribe if you haven't already. Here we go. Oops.
Limitations are those?
Being brown, being First Nations in Canada.
Watch Benjamin Boyce's face, because I know Benjamin Boyce is actually anti-woke when it comes to this, and he's anti. This is what diversity, equity, and inclusion will really f somebody up. Because just listen to this, it makes no sense. Brown, I'm brown. And I don't care. People can call me racist because I think it's dumb to just make baseless accusations of being a victim. Based on he doesn't even have it would make it like if you had like a clear way that you could explain or back up your claim, fine, right? He has none. It's just like it's something else I can call, and this is what these gender ideologues do. That's why a lot of people even transition in the first place, is so that they have a victim class that they can glom onto and pretend to be a victim at all times. Hold on. And again, appropriating Indigenous women's trauma and historical pain and pretending like that was his trauma and historical pain. Sir, sit down. Sit down, sir. Men, come on.
Solution is there not dignity in dedicating your life to fixing the fucked up world?
Well, that's what I've been doing for the last wait, okay, that's 6, 5. It's for the last 5 years since 2016. Wait, that doesn't make sense. 7 years. Somebody do the math. It's 7 years, right? 7 years.
16, 4 plus 2 plus 1. So 7, I guess.
7.
Something like that.
7 years. I've been an advocate on change, on social change, and yet I forget the limitations that the color of my skin has.
What limitations are those?
Being brown, being First Nations in Canada.
Gigi says, Dear Eva, Canada's preeminent lesbian, please learn how to hashtag decenter men. Bravo. For real. That needs to be the name of this stream. It really does.
But you're articulate. When you walk into a room, do you feel people ignore you or discredit you when you walk into a room, when you start to talk to people?
This whole trans debate, they'll find the most oppressed, and that's a white male. To speak.
If you really look at it, once he tells you that he's Indigenous, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, But he could also, he's a pretty racially ambiguous. He could be a whole lot of different things. He could be Spaniard. He could be Italian. Oh yeah, they go to the white male. Okay, all right, sir. It's not like you're hindered by language. Maybe because you're boring and you're a narcissist, and maybe that's why your platform hasn't taken off the way you had hoped. You're not very interesting. It's like everybody, there's not a lot of insight to glean from you. It just sounds a lot very like self-centered. Maybe that's part of it. Yeah, Commander Blue. He probably just can't bear walking into a room without immediately getting attention. Exactly. And that's why he's used to doing these like extreme attention grabs, having to use these like, emotionally manipulative attention grabs. Because, he doesn't really have other things that other people, that draw people to him. So he's got to like fall back on these like cheap tactics, these abusive tactics.
On all issues. It's like this, like their trans identity gives them the right to speak on all issues. And I think Eva can attest to that.
The Montreal, yeah, especially like the Montreal shooting and the guys they've had talking about it the past 2 years. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, they even get to speak on that. They even get to speak on women being shot.
So, because of advocacy, I started in 2016 with Dr. Warnicki because he wanted me to channel my regret into advocacy. So I started advocating for better transgender health care within our province of Alberta. So, like, my file was used, and yet it was white transgender activists that were allowed in the room. And we just wanted things to be covered, like breast augmentation and mastectomy to be covered. Like, we had this whole list, but those are the only two that got covered. And so that was 2016, and then finally came into law, or the bill was passed and came into effect on January 1st, 2019. I'm like, I helped do that, but yet the recognition doesn't fall on my shoulders. It's the white trans people. And then my word, like even with Eva, she like knew about this whole thing within AHS. I'm like, okay, like I'm trying to make a change while I'm here.
Yeah, it's hard to build a platform, Lois. I can barely break into 10,000, and I put in countless hours of videos and streams, and it's hard. Yeah, it's a lot of work. It takes work. Like, it is just all sounds so baseless. It's like it's just him coming up with excuses as to why he's not successful and why he's not as effective as he thinks he should be. It's just like, that's just so lame. The covert racism, what are you just assuming? You're just guessing that that's what it is. So I can't take these kind of like claims seriously. Like, no, sir. Maybe it's because you're mediocre. Maybe because you're not as good at communicating as you think you are. Maybe because you're not as interesting as you think you are. Maybe that's why.
But I have limitations because I'm not an oppressed white male.
Well, you're getting more attention now.
So. Exactly. So like,
I feel like Eva here is like, I mean, that's not. It's like look at Benjamin. Benjamin Boyce is like, bro, what, sir? Like, and I'm sorry, like, no one's looking at you like, oh, he's a native. He's inferior. You speak with perfect English. You're not, bogged down by, like a difficult accent or language barriers that preclude you from being able to communicate effectively or being heard. And it's hard for people to make assumptions about, if someone said he looks Filipino, he could be Filipino. He could be a lot of different things. Like, just assuming that just because someone is a white man, like, I don't know who these people, like, what is this based on? What is it based on? Because it's not, I can understand if you were like phenomenally engaging to listen to and had amazing substance and had been working for years and years and years and developed your own cult following and you were just being blackballed and snubbed. But like, you don't look like you're putting in that much work. You're taking these little, like, these cheap, shortcut, emotional, like, drama stories that are meant to like just be these like cheap attention grabs, and you're mad it's not getting as much attention as you thought it was going to be. Come on.
For the wrong reasons. I know.
Are you cognizant of the possibility that you accessing MAiDs is going to have some sort of impact? Are you aware of that?
Look how much Benjamin Boyce needs to like do. Benjamin Boyce, when I had an interview with him, he spoke like 4 times. I felt bad because I like steamrolled him, but I was like, I know that I only had like a little bit of time to like say everything I wanted to say, so I like try to like blast through as much as I could. Benjamin Boyce has to like coax the story out of him. It's like, okay, come on. You're here on this platform. Here's your chance to get, recognition. Like, take it. It's like everybody has to sit there and be like, okay, now what? Like let's now go to the next one. Hold his hand. You're not interesting or engaging. Let's start there. Start with your presence. You've been, honestly, like unpalatable to listen to. Like, look, like again, and you're wondering, oh, this is why they're not listening, because you don't have a commanding presence, and your story is honestly like nauseating.
An oppressed white male.
I gotta go to the bathroom. Hold on.
Well, you're getting more attention now.
So, exactly.
For the wrong reasons. I know.
Are you cognizant of the possibility that you accessing MAiDs is going to have some sort of impact? Are you aware of that? Are you is there any intention there that you're using MAiDs to make a statement?
No, this is solely for myself and my decision. Like, I have to pass the assessment, so I'm not worried about how this is perceived or whatever. So it's not a call for help. I'm not trying to
trust the doctors if they mistreated you with regard to specifically your male genitals? Do you trust them to assess you thoroughly, honestly, and accurately with regard to the eradication of your life?
These are completely different doctors for the MAiD team. And so, yeah, I completely trust them. And again, like, I'm going to challenge them. How do you unsterilize the Indian?
No, see, that's what I mean. No,
you're not. I would like to know.
You're not.
Well, is there...
When you say, I'm a sterilized Indian, he knows what he's doing. He's hearkening to the historical pain and trauma and abuses of Indigenous females, of Indigenous women. And you know what you're doing when you say that. You know what you're doing. You know what the implications are. You know what you're appropriating a struggle that isn't yours. It didn't work out. You went and got SRS and you didn't work out. You didn't like it. You're not happy with it. And I'm sorry. Yeah, we agree that, people are being misled and all this sort of stuff, but children are the victims, mentally ill, but still adults, like, they have a certain level of responsibility. And that's why the detransitioners with real integrity, like Prisha, I remember Prisha, after she did her whole, when she went in front of the, and testified, and you saw all these trans people are like, oh, like, it's knock it off just because you're not happy with your transition, take your own responsibility. It's not everyone's fault that, it didn't work out for you. Like, and she goes, I am taking responsibility. I do recognize my role in this. And the way that I'm taking responsibility is I'm speaking up about my experience, and I'm making a change so that this doesn't happen to other people, so that they can't be led down this path. I recognize my role in it. And that's why I realize I now have a responsibility to go and do something about it. Which is like, there you go, People can be partially culpable for things, right? And to sit there and pretend that that's tantamount to what was done to Indigenous women as part of a literally a codified program that was enacted for the explicitly written in law purpose of sterilizing women and destroying those women's futures and their bodily autonomy is not you can draw that parallel, but it's wrong to sit there and speak in a way that leads people to conclude that you sort of fall within that. No, you don't. No, you don't.
Is there responsibility other than genetic responsibility for your tribe, collecting the stories, archiving, advocating?
For sure. There's all of that.
Yeah.
Like,
You have nieces and nephews.
Exactly. It's like, well, okay, like, where do I belong?
Exactly. He could have frozen his sperm, but the thing is, he would have had to pay for that out of pocket. I'm sure Canada paid for him to do all the other stuff, but he probably was like, didn't want to shell it out at the time, and probably didn't think that he cared, and then changed his mind later about wishing that he could rent a woman to impregnate, with his sperm and then steal her baby afterwards. Surrogacy.
Myself in my entirety with a future of crap healthcare that I've endured for way too long. Like, when is enough enough?
If they hypothetically said, well, we're not going to give you MAiDs, but we'll fix this.
Somebody says he's critiquing. Oh, Susie Glucksman, because Susie Glucksman always with like the good comments. Susie, you're such a good commenter. She says the irony, he's colonizing womanhood while criticizing colonization. Exactly. Like, if you took any of this seriously, you'd realize how what you're doing is wrong. 877 Swiss Smith says, I listened to everything, just couldn't type, but this guy is triggering me, for real. An ex who turned into a violent stalker turned somewhat similar, and I had to check out for now. I totally respect it. It's really heavy. I totally respect it. Gigi says contemplating, taking your own life because of boredom is equal to not parent material. Yeah, I know. Yeah, thank God this guy cannot have
Neo-vagina thing. It won't be a problem anymore.
He is homosexual, transsexual. I mean, at least he says. I do think some of these men who claim to be homosexual, transsexual are bisexuals. Who, it's like, what is there a term for, like, like femme, bisexual women, like bisexual women who exclusively or almost exclusively or at least prioritize women for the vast majority of the time? Sort of like a bihet is like a bisexual woman who prioritizes heterosexual relationships. Like, I wonder if there's like a term for that for men. I know some people are like, well, it's not on a spectrum, but whatever, bro. You know what we're talking about. So it's like I think some of these so-called homosexual transsexuals are actually AGPs, because bisexual men are AGP. I mean, they're all really AGP in their own way.
Is your life still worth it, beyond that painful part of yourself?
But why do we need to fix it?
Well, I mean,
I listen to him. He's like impossible to deal with. Wait, what do you mean? Vix Logic says KJK's post will be taken down, gutting. What do you mean? Can you explain that? Listen to him. It's like, he's just like, there's nothing that can be done. Yeah, I can't do anything. He look at him. This guy is like, just, I don't want to lose this.
It's like, well, okay, like, where do I belong?
Oh yeah, he's whining about not being fertile anymore, and that's why he doesn't want to do it. And it's like, what? Like, you shouldn't. Children are not objects to just own and possess, so that you can have your own like special legacy. You know what I mean? And you're a homosexual man, which is a non-reproductive sexuality. So like, unfortunately, sorry.
Is there any intention?
But also, it's like, sir, you want a parent so bad? He was talking about how he said Indigenous children are overrepresented in foster care. How about being a foster parent? Taking in some Indigenous children or an Indigenous child to foster to adopt. And then you can, take that child under your wing and teach them all of the customs and things like that. That's the responsible way to parent. If you're, if you're part of a non-reproductive sexuality, not gamete trafficking, not renting the bodies of women so you can possess a child. Like, that's how you can be a part of that legacy. And you can do those things, but no, it's like throwing the tantrum. I want my men and their need for a biological legacy. It needs to be my biological child. Come on, stop.
There, that you're using MAiDs to make a statement.
No.
That you accessing MAiDs
Things while I'm here, but I have limitations because I'm not an oppressed white male.
Well, you're getting more attention now.
So, exactly.
For the wrong reasons. I know.
Are you cognizant of the possibility that you accessing MAiDs is going to have some sort of impact? Are you aware of that? Are you is there any intention there that you're using MAiDs to make a statement?
No, this is solely for myself and my decision. Like, I have to pass the assessment, so I'm not worried about how this is perceived or whatever. So
this is only for myself and my decision. So why are you going from door to door to any media outlet who will have you to go talk about it if you're not trying to make any sort of a message with it? Well, what's the takeaway here? What are we doing? Why are we even talking about this then? Go do it privately. Go through that process, the Canadian healthcare process privately. If you have no takeaway or message, why have we been sitting here? Why are you talking about this? How is this appropriate? What is this about voyeurism? What's the point?
It's not a call for help. I'm not
do
trying
you
to do
trust the doctors if they mistreated you with regard to specifically your male genitals? Do you trust them to assess you thoroughly, honestly, and accurately with regard to the eradication of your life?
These are completely different doctors for the team, the MAiD team. And so, yeah, I completely trust them. And again, like, I'm going to challenge them. How do you unsterilize the Indian?
Sterilize Indian. Yeah, so Twisted A says, exactly, I'm infertile and I've never wanted to do IVF or anything like that. I've always wanted to foster or adopt. I always thought of it as a curse that comes with the best blessings. And, like, I don't mean to, like, be preachy or corny or, get too, like, spiritual. And I know some people are, like, have different whatever. But it's, like, I believe that, like, God makes everything for, like, the way that it's supposed to be. Whatever God is, right? I don't want to get too, like, religious, whatever that is, right? And it's like, it's because there are children in need. If every single person was just fertile and able to produce their own children, then we would have so many children who are produced that some, are in need and need families out there. And it's like, there's some, like, women for whichever biological reasons are not able to have their own children. And it's like there's always, like, God always creates, like, a solution for things, and that's the whole same thing with, homosexual couples who want to parent. It's like it's not the end of the story if you can't have your own biological children. There are so many kids out there, thank God. It just so happens that there are so many children out there who are in desperate need of loving families, right? And so it's like, yeah, luckily it works out, but no, he's selfish, and it has to be his biological child because who knows, selfish man.
Like, I would like to know.
Well, is there responsibility?
Who has answer says IVF, surrogacy, egg and sperm donation are a scourge. Here. I practically got canceled on Twitter by, with all due respect, feminist Twitter. I mean, lesbian, like radfem lesbian Twitter went hard on me when I said that I think that egg donation is wrong, but also sperm donation is wrong, and intentionally severing a child, bringing a child in the world with the intentional plan to sever them from one half of their family. It's not just their father. I said, well, first of all, children need fathers. People went insane when I said that children need fathers. Like, what a ridiculous notion, right? No, they don't. Fathers are more harm than good. Bro, shut up. Some of the worst men in society are men who are raised without other men at all in their lives. Why? Because they grew up only around women. And so the only blueprint they had was seeing women do all the work. Women do everything. Women, provide, do the man's job and the woman's job. It is dangerous to have a bunch of men growing up seeing only women doing all the work and having no blueprint for what it is that men are supposed to do. Okay, and you want to see what female-led entire communities look like? Come down to Philly, where it's most of the households, the vast majority of the households are like a grandmother, a mother, and the kids. And it's like a grandmother-led, how the grandmother stays home and watches, basically plays the mom role, and the mom's out there working night shifts and all this sort of stuff, and the dad is, who knows, right? We say, how's that turning out? And again, these men who don't know what their role is, they don't know what their job is in society. And you have these women who reach adulthood, these girls who believe I've got to be a strong, independent woman because I don't need no man. I need to do everything on my own. And that is a toxic message to send our daughters. Yeah, you have to do everything. As a mother, that is a recipe for disaster for the mother and the child, dumping the entire weight of the world simply on the woman in the house. Oh yeah, you got this. So we can have that argument some other time, but no, I'm sorry. Children need fathers. They don't need bad fathers, but again, it's like no one's picking a dad being like, oh, he's going to be a bad. This is also why we need to raise our standard in the men that we sleep with. We need to raise our standard in the men that, we build families with. And we need to stop to, oops, I got pregnant. Oh, I guess we'll build a family around it. No. Conceive with intention, with the highest intention and thought and planning. This whole I got knocked up, it makes me insane. I am so sad and heartbroken. And when I was a birth worker, I saw it repeatedly. And I saw the heartbreak and how difficult it was to build families around these accidental pregnancies because everyone's just out there fucking. They're living together with people that they're not even sure if they want to be in a relationship with full time. And we got pregnant, so I guess we're in this now. And then we have another baby because we already had one, and a few years in, and it's all falling apart, and it's sad. Okay, and I don't, whatever, and I think that like gamete peddling, gamete trafficking, it's wrong. That is the cellular life of a child, and you don't own that. It doesn't belong to you. Using this elaborate technology to create things that don't happen in nature, that is the cellular life of the child, and you don't have a right. I think it's evil. You don't have a right, to sever that child. And you're not just severing. Okay, we all agree. Okay, children don't need dads. So let's pretend that has any merit. Okay, yeah, I guess they don't. Right? Like it's just fucking dumb. Let's pretend that they don't need dads at all, period, right? And again, if the father is proven that he is a danger, then of course you sever him out of their life. Of course you make the right decision. But that's not what this is. This is about designer families where we're using high-tech resources and technology to create designer families to fit with how we want to style our family, right? So yeah, so you're not just, again, if we're going to pretend that, okay, let's just take for granted that, okay, kids don't need fathers. Well, it's not just a father. You're robbing them of their maternal grandmother, their maternal aunts and uncles, their maternal cousins, that entire framework of who they are. That is their birthright. That is a child's birthright. Okay? The only time that you're entitled to sever that is when it has proven itself as a danger. And it's another reason why we just need to raise our standards and who we even give our bodies to. Sex is not a game. It's not a recreation. Okay? It's not a game. This is how children are made. And this is why porn is so problematic. This is why the sexual liberation movement is so dangerous to mothers. It's dangerous to women. It's dangerous to children. It's destroying our society. People are getting hurt. Children are being brought into situations that they should have never had to be brought into. Women are becoming mothers without even thinking about it. And men, they don't care. They walk away. It gets too hard. I'm out of here. It's heartbreaking, and we need to reverse course. We need to reverse course. It's getting bad, and I'm sorry, and I know that this is hurtful, or people again who have non-reproductive sexualities and things like that, but it is not a good idea to sit here and fuel an industry which treats babies like a commodity, that treats women like a brood mare, and that treats human beings and the cellular life of human beings as, you know, trading cards to pass around and trade and buy and sell. It's scary, it's dystopian, and every time we use it, we embolden it, we strengthen it, we give it more money, more access, more resources to grow even more grotesque. And this is why, and then we wonder, you know, like, you know, it's all good. We can do these like sperm donation, all this sort of stuff. Oh, but we don't want surrogacy, and we don't want men having uteruses, you know, put inside of them. Even, unfortunately, you know, it's not just for homosexual couples, it's heterosexual couples too that are infertile. They're going through these elaborate processes. You know, the first uterine transplant were done on women. And that's how they're learning and honing that technology, honing that science so that they can do it for men. Sometimes we need to know what the limitations are, and when we strayed too far from nature. There's a reason that like life develops the way that it does. We need to start having more respect for how beautifully designed our bodies are. And again, if we take this gender critical idea that our bodies are perfectly made and they're a very intricate, delicate balance of an ecosystem, and then when you disrupt part of that or you cut part of that, you disrupt all of it, and it creates a cascade effect of things falling apart. Now you're scrambling around trying to do a revision surgery and fix this, and well, now there's a side effect to that medication. Now we need more medication for it, or we need another procedure because of that. The same thing is true with the ecosystem of family, with life, human life. For fuck's sake. And the fact that like I was getting ratioed so hard on those takes, ratioed. It was like people were dogpiling this shit out of me. I didn't give a fuck because I knew, I believe in what I knew in my heart. You know, I feel that I'm right. I believe in what I'm saying. And it didn't matter that I was having like 50 million people telling me that I'm wrong, right? You know what I mean? And I just like, I don't care. Children are too precious. Life is too precious. We are not God, and the preferences of adults will never chief the needs and the rights of children, ever. Period. That's not our right. So anyway, that's my rant. Because I was like, bro, am I in the Twilight Zone that like people are acting like I'm insane? I lost so many followers. People went and like unsubscribed from me on YouTube for that, basically that exact same rant. Oh, and the main thing that really pissed everybody off, the tweet that really went serious, that really got caustic, that I lost so many Twitter followers on. Kara Dansky was supposed to come on my channel that Friday, canceled on me, wouldn't reschedule. And I was like, that's what's up, Kara. You know, was because I tweeted children need fathers. That was it. I said I either said children need fathers or children deserve their fathers or something like that. Man, I might as well have tweeted that like I just like, you know, murdered like a factory full of kittens because people like went insane. I was like, bro, I don't give a fuck. Take it up with like, you know, you like that. That's how diseased we are. The people are that offended. That's how fucking diseased we are. I was like, if anything, you're just exposing to me how far off track we've gotten, and it's scary. It's dystopian. Anyway.
Ability other than genetic responsibility for your tribe, collecting the stories, archiving, advocating.
For sure. There's all of that.
Yeah.
But like,
you have nieces and nephews.
Exactly. It's like, well, okay, like where do I belong as myself in my entirety with a future of crap healthcare that I've endured for way too long? Like when
he has nieces and nephews, why don't you be like a community to the children in your family. So you have young children in your family who he's posted pictures of. Be a community. Be the uncle who's there, who shows up. Do you know how valuable that might be one day for the little boys and little girls who again, I always say that me and my sister, we always say that we make a point to do a lot with all of our kids, because I always say, I want your girls, she has all daughters, I want your girls to know that if there's ever a time that they feel like that they can't come to you about something, that they can come to me. Like that they have Aunt Brittany, that they know that, and I can help them figure out what's going on, and we can come and figure out a way to talk to their mom together. I'm never going to keep anything from their mom, but I can be a stepping stone, right? I can be a stepping stone to help them process what's happening, prepare what they want to say, if it's too much for them to go straight to their mom, or if it's like, say they're in crisis and they're scared of getting in trouble, and it's just sometimes it's easier to just call somebody who's just not your parent, and they need me to come pick them up, but you don't just with kids, you've got to really cultivate that trust with them by spending time with them, doing things with them. Be a community to the children in your family. No, because you want the genetic legacy, because children are just an object to you, and that's all you give a shit about.
It's enough.
If they hypothetically said, well, we're not going to give you MAiDs, but we'll fix this neovagina thing. It won't be a problem anymore. Is your life still worth it beyond?
Listen to the answer to this question. This shit, if anybody's still on the fence about whether or not this Lois guy is a good guy or if he's sincere in any kind of way, hold on for 1 second, guys. I'm going to pause the stream. Give me 1 second. All right, my bad. We got like 10 more minutes before my kids get home. Here we go.
It's that painful part of yourself.
Listen to this answer. If you're still on the fence about this guy, whether he's a good guy or his motives are legit, this will put the nail in the coffin. Hold on. Here we go. Hold on.
For way too long. Like, when is enough enough?
If they hypothetically said, well, we're not going to give you MAiDs, but we'll fix this neovagina thing. It won't be a problem anymore. Is your life still worth it beyond that painful part of yourself?
But why do we need to fix it?
Well, I mean, if it's not structurally sound, I mean, if it's gonna
look at even Eva's like, bro, huh? Like, why do we need to fix it? Because you're literally saying that you want to end your life over it. Or that's the thing. It's not really about that. You still want the attention regard. Like there is no way to fix it for me. It's just gonna happen regardless. Bro, this is not. Come on. Yeah, and why would we need to fix it? And everyone's like, isn't that why you applied to MAiD? To the medically assisted death? Huh?
Part of yourself?
But why?
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry, we just gotta really drive it home.
Of crap healthcare that I've endured for way too long. Like, when is enough enough?
If they hypothetically said, well, we're not going to give you MAiDs, but we'll fix this neovagina thing. It won't be a problem anymore. Is your life still worth it beyond that painful part of yourself?
But why do we need to fix it?
Well, I mean, if it's not structurally sound, I mean, if it's going to atrophy or collapse at some point, could they just take that out? If that is the seat of your discomfort and they resolve that, is the rest of life? Does life just boil down to this one procedure, this one problem, this one persistent fear?
No, it's a plethora of issues. I'm like, it's not just.
I like how he's like acting like he doesn't understand the question. It's like are we insane? Are you insane? Are we in the right timeline? Like, what universe am I in? Have we not been? Have we not been talking about this? Like, and he's like, why? Like, it's almost like he's like, why would you ask me that? It's like, because you literally said that you're applying to medically assisted death because of it. And he's saying, if we could fix that one thing, would you feel better? And he's like, I don't know. No, of course not. And I was like, okay. And then you ask him why. And he's like, I don't, it's just it's a plethora of things. Bro, this is a grift.
The vaginoplasty, it's that regret. It's the genocidal addition.
Here we go. Pulling up the woke buzzwords. He got him in a corner. He's panicking. It's genocidal. It's the genocidal. He refers to white people's round eyes. Like, are we supposed to be okay with that? I'm so tired of the anti-white, like, it's all good to be like offensive and like disrespectful, or round eyes, baseless claims of, oh, it's just the white men who get listened to, like, and obviously I'm not saying that there's not racism, but you're not giving us any like real example that's like seems like that's based on anything. You're just making assumptions. And he's like, oh, now he's panicking. So now he pulled out the woke bingo card and he's starting to scramble and just randomly hit random buttons. Genocidal, transphobic. Here we go. Here we go. It's not. Look at Watchmen. Even Eva's like, there's like a glitch. Watch Benjamin Boyce's face is fucking hilarious. The plethora of us.
It's not just the vaginoplasty. It's that regret. It's the genocidal addition. It's just a lot more than just a physical thing.
Huh.
But that physical thing is what qualifies me for MAiD. So
okay,
there's that too. The two issues. So the maintenance for it, like you don't get cured you don't get cured from vaginoplasty. So you're a lifelong patient.
He's saying the maintenance. So one thing that he's brought up multiple times is having to like dilate for the rest of his life, and how he hates that idea. And again, I told you, it's just because he's whining because he doesn't have a partner, and I wish I had gotten the timestamp for that, because he's like just whining about not having a partner, and that's like, again, this is like the like woe is me kind of thing. It's the maintenance I'm gonna have to do. I have to dilate twice a week now. It's just too much. Well, and it's like he was once a week, and then he went up to 2 times a week, and they said he got to go back to once a week, but he's worried that it's gonna pick up again, and it's just like, that's why he's got to use this as a resource and traumatize his family and keep everyone hostage. And it's like, look at even Eva. Eva, come on, step it up.
They can't delete it. I don't know anything about this. They can't delete it.
Connie, I love you, Connie, but everyone, Connie in the house here, Connie is like probably the most low-key powerhouse on the boots on the ground movement. Has such an impact on like the East Coast turf movement, boots on the ground, setting up stuff, and never gets any credit for herself, never tries to get any credit for herself, but she is like one of these low-key, incredibly pivotal pieces of the work that we're doing, and deserves so much more credit than she gets. And she's so humble. She's like, oh no, I'm just doing my own part. Like, Connie, like literally none of this would have been possible without you. So Connie's amazing.
So if it collapses, you either get a colon graft, or they graft some skin and turn it inside out and all that stuff. I'm like, well, how many like surgeries? Like, when is like enough enough?
Huh. In your relationship, so I'm trying to get a very deep understanding of your point of view. So there's this vaginoplasty problem. And then there's systemic issues. There's issues
exactly
with Canada, with history, this huge thing that you can't fix. Like, why allow something like a system, a bureaucracy, dictate how you feel about life itself and your connection to the spirit or to your fate, your destiny? Why allow? I just don't understand why you would let Canada, a flawed human organism, dictate your relationship to your time on Earth.
I think it has to do with exactly that, just everything just compounded into one thing, and then it's just like, okay, I give up. Like, yeah, like I give up. So now I have this like new fight in me. I'm like, okay, well, given the timeline, so next week on the 25th, my application should be completed. And then I submit it the same day, so I let them know the same day. And then the process begins, so 90 days. I'm not guaranteed that it's going to happen after 90 days. Again, I can opt out at any given time. But then, like, it's just giving me this, like, fight within me. It's like, okay, well, let's make this short time last. Let's make this impact. All I could do is ignite a spark within people. Those sparks grow. It can burn down a forest.
What spark, though? You've been the most uninspiring person the most dull, uninspiring person. And you literally even admitted that you have no message for any of this. What spark are you igniting? I still don't understand. What are you hoping to accomplish with any of this? And Benjamin Boyce, for the past 45 minutes, has been desperately trying to, like, get to the heart of that, and we're no closer than we were before. And even Eva is just like, like, doesn't even understand, like, what spark are you trying? I'm gonna light a spark. Did you just read some random, like, inspirational meme and just like, hey, that sounds good and inspiring, let me just, like, throw that out there, and maybe, you know, someone, it'll like do something. Wow.
Like, let's do this.
Do what? Burn down what?
Whatever needs being burnt down.
Bro, please, this is like my new, I want this to be my new, like, intro. I swear to God, I wonder if I'll get in trouble. I think I'm gonna make this my new channel intro. I'm, you know, in the time that I got here, I'm gonna have a spark, and we all know that a spark is enough to burn down, you know, a lot of things. And Benjamin Boyce goes, burn down what? Goes, you know, stuff. It's like, bro, okay. Oh my, I'm like crying. Hold up. Oh, please. This is my new channel intro. I don't give a fuck, and I'm gonna do it. I just haven't been making videos. I only do live streams. But this is my new channel intro.
Like, yeah, like I give up. So now I have this like new fight in me. I'm like, okay, well, given the timeline, so next week on the 25th, my application should be completed. And then I submit it the same day, so I let them know the same day. And then the process begins, so 90 days. I'm not guaranteed that it's going to happen after 90 days. Again, I can opt out at any given time. But then, like, it's just giving me this, like, fight within me. It's like, okay, well, let's make this short time last. Let's make this impact. All I could do is ignite a spark within people. Those sparks grow. It can burn down a forest. Like, let's do this.
Do what? Burn down what?
Whatever needs being burnt down.
Okay. Gender ideology?
Exactly. Let's burn it down.
I'm trying.
Do what? Burn down what? What? Whatever needs to be burned. Whatever needs to be burned down. And then Eva goes, I'm trying. It's like the combination of all three of them was like the most, like, comedic, like, perfect. Like, you know, Spark. We all know Spark has what it takes to burn down a forest. So, you know, while I'm here, I'm gonna just try to burn it down. And Benjamin Boyce goes, do what? Burn down what? Whatever needs to be burning down. And then Eva goes, I'm trying. Oh, I'm like crying. This is like the worst. It's like the worst interview I've ever heard in my life. It's literally it's satire. This is my intro. I don't give a fuck. This is my intro. This is my new intro. Like, this is my 2020. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Bro, where are we?
Exactly, see? We're trying.
Forever.
Honestly, I would love to speak to our premier.
Yes.
About what?
Justin Trudeau's not going to listen because he'll find the sadder, even more oppressed native than me.
What?
Probably someone white, a white male.
There's some of those that are pretending to be native.
Hold on, guys.
Exactly.
My kid, that was like the perfect time I gotta go. My kid just went, bro. That's my new intro. I love you guys. I'm sorry for the controversy. This was phenomenal. Wow, that just put me in the best mood. I gotta go. They're gonna come and like photobomb me. I love you guys. Tomorrow, Kai Decadence. Kai, did you ever send me the photos? If you haven't, do it. If you have, my bad. I gotta go. Love you guys. I'll see you later. Hey. Don't come in.
Mom.
What? Hold on.
Mom.
What?